Like,
I mean, you don't
imagine
hate
doing,
food.
imagine being a soldier. All right, you go off to war, you see your friends die, and you're like, yeah, you know what? War sucks, and I'm not gonna watch any war movies. That's what cooking is like to me. It's war.
And I think it's pretty fair to say that we're ready to talk about anime of the decade.
Oh my god, hello and welcome to the Weeb Crew, everyone.
Oh, we're doing an intro? Are we going to finish recording the other one first?
No, well, it can all literally just be one, like, recording, which, by the way, if you want to hear our review of the new Naoka Yamada movie, The Colors Within, go hit us up on Patreon or something, because that's where that'll be for however much.
Marathon recording.
You can also Mumi and before we got to talk about the movie, Mumi gave us a very interesting brain teaser.
You're not gonna believe what he said.
Yeah, you're really not gonna be able to fucking guess what we were talking about. Yeah. So, hello, welcome to the Weeb Crew. I'm your host, Psiotic. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Mumi.
I'm the edgy one.
Can you, like, guys, let anyone listening, let us know, who do you think is, like, the edgier, like, podcast host? Is it me or is it Moon? I feel like because we constantly bounce back and forth between who is the straight man and who isn't.
We just very naturally slide into whatever role we need.
It's fine. Sometimes Moomy's the top and I'm the bottom. Sometimes, I'm the top, he's the bottom, and we, like, swap back and forth. I think they call them
switch.
Yeah, I think that's the technical term. I remember, did you ever take, like, there was, like, a BDSM quiz, and it's like, it will, like, give you, like, percentages on, like, all your different fetishes. Did you ever take that?
Yes.
That would be a fun. We should take that. We should do a stream where we take, like, instead of doing an anime quiz, we take, like, we take the BDSM fetish quiz.
I think I screenshotted what mine was. Hold on.
No, I've long. I mean, it's probably also changed, but I've long since forgotten, like, what my results could even possibly be. But
it's probably just in this fucking random folder I have of just
random
shit.
Anyway, we're talking about our top 10 anime of the decade so far.
90% vanilla.
Oh, you are. Are you serious? Oh my fucking. Is that your highest one? Dear God.
There you go.
Wow. Okay, well, now you know how fucking boring Moomy is. I forgot that Rigor is an entry on here.
I don't know what that means.
Wow, Moomy is. If any, wow. Wow, okay. This is. Wow. So, Moomy, I guess we'll start with you because we're halfway through the decade now, Moomy, which is a horrifying thought.
We're just all dying.
We've gotten the first 5 years, so we're basically just going to be talking about anything that came out, from the start of 2020 all the way up through the end of 2024. And before anyone asks, no is not on our lists. Neither is.
Oh no.
There are some things you probably like, but I'm sorry, not on here.
Oh.
So this is how we're going to go through this list, and you're probably going to come away from this thinking, wow, these guys are fucking, like, pretentious assholes.
I don't know why you had to go and dump all the spoilers. Now no one's going to fucking watch.
Oh, maybe they're going to rage listen, or maybe I'll bleep those out. Here, let me note down that timestamp, and I'll bleep those portions out. That way. If you want to hear what we actually said, again, check out the Patreon. Otherwise, I don't know, go fuck yourself. Who cares? I don't know.
You'll probably figure it out through context clues.
Yeah, if leave a comment below of what you wanted us to talk about, but we didn't.
I think the play here would just be to, if you disagree, leave your top 10 in the comments below.
Yeah. I mean, how many
Let's
anime
discuss.
have we seen from this decade so far? Even it's
From this decade,
a
huh?
couple hundred if we include like movies, TV shows, shorts. Let me see. So, 34 plus 48 plus 53 plus 34 plus 69. Nice. So that's a little bit over 200 just doing some like I'm not going to like do actual math, but we see a considerable amount. So I think we have a fairly valid like top 10. That's kind of always the thing is like whenever someone does like a top 10 list and they've only seen 10 things, it's kind of like why the fuck are you doing this?
I actually don't know how many I've fucking seen, and I was looking at my fucking
You can
Val
literally just
graph.
no, you can literally just go to your Annie list here. Go to your Annie, go to stats, scroll down, and it'll say release year, and you can just like 36, 52, 38, 31, 79. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
we're
I
in like
forgot
the
that this
same
has this.
ballpark here.
We watched 79 shows from 2024. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. So wait, you watched like 10 more than me somehow, though that may include like some shorts. I don't know.
I'm pretty comfortably over 200, probably about 230.
Yeah, so that's our sample size. I mean, there's still stuff, especially from earlier in the decade, like 2020, maybe 2021, where it's like there's probably stuff I still want to go back and like revisit at some point, or just like stuff that I never actually ended up checking out but wanted to. But especially like going from like 2023, that's which we did like an anime of the year episode in 2020 for 2023. So we'll definitely cover some stuff that we talked about there. Then we started like watching a lot more anime last year. So there are a number of entries from like the last 2 years just because a mix of recency bias, but then also like we just watched more. So
Yeah, I don't even know if that's even true. I don't.
looking at yours,
That's
yeah.
true for yours. Look at yours.
Yeah, there are a few from last. There are more from last year on my list than your. I mean, shit. Don't is there? Okay, there's one from last year on your top 10, and whereas there's like three from mine.
You won't believe what it is. Stay tuned to find out.
Well, we should probably get to talking about them before people click off. Let's talk about. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first?
Uh, I went first last time. We'll let you go first.
All right. Well, I think my first, it would be weird to start off with your number 10 anyway, since that one's really popular. So we'll start off with my number 10, which is not as well known. It's from last year, Senpai wa Otokonoko. Was that last season or the season before, actually?
Season before, I think it was summer.
Yeah.
Summer was pretty stacked. Summer 2024.
Yeah. So summer 2024.
What did you think about it?
And we should probably describe what it's about. So basically, I guess for anyone who hasn't like either listened to, we did a seasonal episode for that season 2, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to like hear like fresher thoughts on that, go and listen to that. But basically, what Senpai wa Otokonoko is about is it's a love triangle romance slice of life story between the main character Makoto, who is, as the title suggests, an Otokonoko. They have this Kyohei Saki who is in love with him. Initially, Saki thinks that Makoto is a girl, but then Makoto's like, "No, I'm actually just a guy, and I like to like dress as a girl." Which Saki just makes her fall in love with him even more. And then also Makoto's childhood friend Ryuji, who has all sorts of complex feelings towards Makoto, and like he's like, does this make me gay because you look like a girl? Am I gay? And it's a really well done kind of a romantic drama, but there's also a good amount of comedy in there as well. I quite
Was
like
quite a bit of drama.
I quite like the way it just like handles its subject matter in a very like, because like usually when you see like an Otokonoko character in anime, it's usually done as like a joke or a gag. I mean, you go all the way back to something even like Stocky Body-kun, for instance, and it's like that is a gag manga in a lot of ways. And like the joke, at least from what I've seen of Hibari-kun, is never really at Hibari's expense as much as it is to the expense of everyone around her, because, well, I mean, it's in the title. She cannot be stopped.
Well, she's also kind of presented as like, I don't say like a Mary Sue type character, but she's like one of those kind of characters that's like very competent.
Yeah,
And
well,
like,
she's like strong as shit and stuff, and just beating everyone at
yeah.
sports, which
So
is
she
very
it
funny
doesn't
to
really
think about in a
work
modern
for
context.
her to be on the receiving end of that kind of joke.
Um, but I quite like, especially like the gender dynamics of the story, because it does go into like Makoto's own feelings regarding like their gender and how they feel about stuff. And it's very interesting because Makoto's mother is like very like she sees like, he has like, women's clothing, like a wig and stuff, and is like flipping the fuck out, whereas Makoto's dad is very much more supportive of their son. And like there's a wonderful scene even when like they're driving the car and Makoto's dad asks like, so like, what's up, are you like a boy or a girl, like I'll love you all the same, but like, is you like what's going on? And Makoto's just like, I don't know, I'm still like figuring that out myself. um and it kind of comes to this kind of very poignant conclusion where it's like they don't really feel particularly resonant with either label. Yeah, I'm using like he him pronouns, but I mean, one, pronouns in Japanese translated in English are always weird.
Yeah.
And my impression of Makoto as a character is it's an any all situation.
Kind of more non-conforming than like
Yeah,
identifying
yeah.
with one or the other kind of deal.
Which is really cool, and I like how delicately and mindfully it handles that subject matter. I quite like how it handles Makoto's relationship with Ryuji and the sorts of anxieties that kind of come with that, where like it's Makoto does not. It's the fucking classic childhood friend thing where it's like Ryuji is like has like these feelings, but Makoto isn't really able to reciprocate them, but still wants to try because if he doesn't, then he's worried that like that'll jeopardize his friendship with Ryuji. That classic whole dynamic, and then you have Saki, and Saki has like all this stuff going on in her own life with is it her mother? I don't remember.
She lives with her dad. Well,
Yeah.
she lives with her grandmother, but
Yes.
her
Yeah.
dad is
Yeah.
away on
And her
like
mother is not a
whale
part of her
voyage.
life and stuff. So all these characters kind of have like stuff going on. And for characters that have like Ryuji has a comparatively much more stable family life than the other two, but then also has this very like strong inner conflict with his own like sexuality. Saki has like a pretty stable, pretty good relationship with both Ryuji and Makoto, but then obviously has like a lot of this family drama. And then Makoto has both family drama and relationship problems. They're a real hot mess. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was like a really just nice, heartwarming experience. I went into it being like, oh, this will be pretty good. This will be pretty nice. And by the time I was done with it, I was like, yeah, I think I really love this show and what it has to say and the way it goes about handling its subject matter. I remember we did get into like there was like an argument in like debates to be had in terms of like, okay, well, what is Makoto's gender identity? Are they do they just like to put on wear like girly things, put on like wigs, girly clothing, and they do like to be like validated and seen as a woman, but then also they don't necessarily just strictly identify as trans either, and that became like a point of contention. So for the
I don't.
record,
Yeah, I don't remember that like me having that issue. I remember my issue because like you fell in love with the show, and I
mhm,
was kind of like okay on it,
mhm.
and then my issue came with Ryuji actually because it felt like they did him so fucking dirty in this show.
He does get screwed.
Like fucking it almost feels like the show in a way is like bending over backwards for Makoto sometimes,
A little
and
bit.
Ryuji is like such a fucking like cool character. Like
He's such a good friend. It's really like Makoto deserve he deserves better than Makoto.
he really does, honestly. But it's just like
um,
it just sucks so much like watching it from like that experience because you're like, oh my god, I hate the main character of the show because of this fucking this instance here because he's treated this guy like that is
I
done.
don't hate her. No, I think because like it's an understandable like position to be in because
I get
like
it. I
because
get
she's
it.
like yeah.
It's just like it's just so frustrating to me. I'm like I can't get into it.
Mhm. That's I you know me. You know me. I love me some melodrama. I love me some love triangles.
You
I
like that
love
kind of stuff. I like cry porn shit. That's just like
so you want like Ryuji to die or Makoto to die.
okay. That's not what I want out of this
What?
show. But like I
Mhm.
would have been more into it if it were cry porn,
Oh
probably.
no. No, I don't know. Yeah, I'm a big melodrama lover, you know. I'm watching Blue Box right now, and for like you and like Lex and everyone else in that group watches Fallen Off, and I'm like, no, this is prime material.
Say falling off. That gives like a weird. I would say more like it's just kind of stagnated.
Stagnated, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't want to make. I don't make it sound like there's like something went south and it's just like a considerably worse show. It's kind of just the same. It's just been dragged out a bit, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
eh.
Uh yeah, I don't know. Really nice show. I think there's supposed to be a movie. Oh, the movie has already come out. I don't know.
Oh,
The manga finished. I don't know if the movie is going to finish the manga, but I mean, I'll still watch it anyway because yeah, I like these characters. I like the story. I want to see where the story ends up taking them. I am now thinking back, yeah, because Makoto does there is that scene where Makoto is like someone passing by on the street like recognizes her as like a girl or something and she feels very validated by that. So I probably should have just been using she her pronouns the whole time. Whoopsies. Oh well, my bad.
I don't know.
It doesn't
I
again.
I think she feels validated because they're like, oh, she's so beautiful.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's necessarily the because she is very much focused on the cute aspect.
that's
I
true.
feel like I feel like the series is trying to make that distinction between like the Otonoko kind of movement
Yeah.
and trans or um,
Which there is
gender identity
something
kind of stuff.
not to drag Twitter drama into this, there is something weird I've noticed where like people who hate trans people on Twitter will be like, they're not trans, they're an Otokonoko. And it's like, and are you okay? That's where you're drawing the line. So
Yeah,
you're
I'm
okay.
saying this. I'm saying this in response to you being like, "Oh, I should have said this." It's like, you can
Yeah.
say what, like if you read that as like trans, I'd go for it, right?
Sure.
Like,
Oh yeah,
it,
no. I could
if you want
certainly
to watch fucking
absolutely see how like
Halloween,
that's like reflective of like the trans experience.
yeah, if you want to watch fucking Halloween and you see some reflections of the trans experience in that, all
Yeah.
more power to you. Like, I don't care, right? Like, it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like in this specific, it's like you don't know, like it's not
It's a
a
very
right or wrong
complex
way.
it's a very
Yeah,
complex relationship between gender identity, the way you present yourself, the kinds of things that you like, all this sorts of stuff. Sexuality. It's all a messy, complex spectrum. And I don't know. People can be like any. I mean, that's how I was brought up. At least people can be any permutation of those things, like anything in between, all mixed up, yada yada yada. Everything's cool. Just
turns out it makes for a pretty interesting show, I guess. Make it
yeah,
in your top 10.
it made it into my top 10. Which, I mean, as we get into my top 10, we'll talk about probably towards the end predictions for the future. What I want out of this decade, I think I want to knock at least the bottom three shows off my top 10. And I say the 2020s, pretty good.
What you're saying is Senpai wa Otokonoko is
Mhm.
not all that good. I don't want it in my top 10.
Listen, it's a great show. I don't want it on my top 10. What a great sell I've given this. But yeah, go check it out if you haven't. If it sounds like a subject matter that interests you, if it sounds like the kind of just, I don't know, you like melodramatic romance. I mean, this certainly is it.
Yeah, it's pretty melodramatic.
Yeah. So Mumi, then let's move on to you. What was your number 10?
You see, your list is going to be pretty interesting to people. I think that might not have their finger on the pulse, at least for like the first half.
So yeah, you're gonna see, yeah, and then yours is gonna be really fucking normie. Everything, most of the stuff on Mumi's list is gonna be really damn popular.
It's not on there because it's popular, right? But it is popular because it would be on my list. I do have boring taste.
You're saying you're a taste maker.
I am the trailblazer. All right. I had Evangelion and Fully Cooley on my favorites before it was cool in like 2004.
When you were like 12 years old.
I was 12 years old.
Mumi's been on the vanguard, a tastemaker since day one. He came out the womb, and guess what? His Letterboxd top 4, impeccable.
Impeccable.
He had movies on there that wouldn't even be out for another 10 years.
Speaking of impeccable, number 10, Bocchi the Rock. Impeccable.
Which is funny. It's funny that I'm giving you shit for having Bocchi the Rock on here as being like your number 10. Bocchi the Rock is my number 6. So
ooh, spoilers.
Well, no, because, I mean, we're already covering it anyway. So like, who fucking cares?
Yeah. We talked about Bocchi the Rock in a video.
We have a whole video about it. Yeah.
Pointing
back when we made videos.
So we covered quite a bit about it. I don't know if there's a whole lot I could say that we didn't cover there. That's
true, but I mean, you know, that's also been like what, like over like close to 2 years by now. A while ago,
2.5. We're dying.
We're dying. Please send help. So you know, there are people who are listening to this who probably have not heard our thoughts on Bocchi the Rock, and it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, in summation, it's about people probably know what Bocchi is at this point. It's about fucking recluse girl who takes up the guitar to try to be cool, gets big on YouTube, ends up finally getting out of her shell enough to be in a band, and it's about her in this band using music as a way to connect with people and really using her experience with the guitar to excel in the world.
While also having funny animation gags every episode.
Yeah, it's very comedic focused show.
Which is like, I think like the main appeal for me is that sort of like insane imagination of the show. It's interesting because like when we first talked about that, we talked about the director, Keiichiro Saito, you know, as his like, you know, directorial debut, at least on like a TV series. And now he's like gone and done Frieren, and he's like this like pretty big fucking name now, to say the least.
Too big for fucking Bocchi, I guess.
Hey. So yeah, he's not directing season 2 of Bocchi, but I'm fine with that because I think the spirit of Bocchi is not really one that is like defined by who is in the director's chair per se. I think what Keiichiro Saito has demonstrated very well between Bocchi the Rock and Frieren is that he is really capable of managing a project and helming the ship and kind of giving people the sorts of flexibility to kind of do what they want. And that really comes through in Bocchi because, like, I mean, every episode is like, it's not on the level of something like, what's the one really gaggy show, Pop Team Epic, where it's like constant, like, zany stuff, but
yeah,
just every so often, like a few times an episode, it'll just pop, like it'll just you know, flip out a little bit, and you're like, what the fuck was that?
It's very visually inspired too. Like like there's a whole zoetrope set up. They do like fucking weird like pictures of hands and shit.
It's extra as hell, and it does not need to be, but it is very much appreciated that it does do that, because again, it just becomes like a treat to watch animation wise, and especially like, I mean, everyone was like, oh, it's such an so much better than the manga, but I think what really demonstrates how good Bocchi is how it is able to take those gags from the manga and recontextualize some of them, add new ones in, and make it all work in a way that it doesn't even necessarily feel like a gag show. It's like where you have like the setup, build up, payoff, and it ends. They all flow together very, very well. It doesn't feel like you're getting Family Guy funny moment bits.
No, there is a very strong core in Bocchi,
Yes.
where the pathos pays off and hits so fucking hard. Like the fucking concert scenes, the scene where they do the title drop. Like all these scenes are such great payoffs, and then I think part of what makes them such great payoffs is because it is such a eclectic sort of experience going through it. Like it does go from the highs of the funnies, her being in the fucking box on stage, crazy schizophrenic shit where she just like completely goes outside of her outline or whatever, and then it goes to that sort of grounded, just core human interpersonal kind of just mano people talking and finally kind of just airing stuff out and understanding each other in a way that Bocchi specifically did not understand other people because she spent so much time by herself, and like using this whole band experience as a way to sort of act as a vehicle for her growth as a person.
And similar to something like the Tatami Galaxy, I think also like the visual gags do serve a purpose because they are all ultimately products of like Bocchi's imagination, essentially. Like, her anxiety, her overthinking about stuff. It's like an OCD kind of thing where any situation, it's like a delusion of grandeur or absolutely catastrophizing, and those manifest in ways that are very extreme, and then are presented in a very over-the-top manner as a result.
Yeah, it really kind of puts you into the shoes in a way, like it gets you in the mood in a way that wouldn't be the same if she were just narrating this in her head, right?
While at the same time, it keeps it from being fucking miserable.
Yeah.
like anxiety actually is. So it manages to communicate the feeling without necessarily like, I mean, there are parts of the show that are like, oh, this is too relatable. Like I was that kid in school who was like, didn't really know how to connect with other people. So I would
bring your guitar,
like the music I like, and then just hope someone would talk to me. Pathetic stuff like that, basically. Or, there was a really painful moment where they're on like summer break, and Bocchi is just laying in bed, basically just watching space videos on YouTube, and I'm like, I don't fucking like you. I don't like you because you're just like me.
See, I was the opposite as a kid. I was like the Holden Caulfield kind of kid.
Oh, racist?
No, well, not with minus some racism. Listen, I grew up in the 90s, all right? Racism was defeated in the 90s.
You were like Naoto from Fooly Cool. You were like an angsty little shit.
Yeah. I was like, oh, these fucking fake phonies.
Yeah. I was kind of like that as well, but I also wanted people to like me still. I still want friends. Please, will you guys please be my friend? I need friends.
No.
Are you my friend?
We're keeping this a strictly professional relationship.
You are my friend.
Oh. Bocchi the Rock, my number 10.
I don't think we need to fucking sell Bocchi the Rock anymore, which is why we're going to move on to a show that I think was popular when it came out and then promptly fell off hard. I'm talking about, it's an original anime, so that's probably why. It's Akudama Drive, which you have not seen Akudama Drive, have you?
No, I have not.
So Akudama Drive is Lextorius's favorite anime he has not seen yet.
Oh.
It has everything he would want. It's actually very similar to something like a Cyberpunk Edgerunners, is how I'd probably best sell it. So it's this like futuristic cyberpunk dystopian anime about these group of psychopath criminals, basically, They all have like these like epic code names and shit like that. And they've been tasked. They've been tasked with a heist. They've been tasked to rob the Shinkansen, which in this fucked up weird future is basically takes you from
It's like the Snowpiercer.
It takes you from like the poor Kansai region, which is like this like just like fucked up like future slum area, and it takes you to the Kanto region, which is like talked about as this like great utopia like kind of thing. So everyone wants to get on the Shinkansen and get to Kanto, and they've been tasked with robbing the train.
Oh, so it's like Galaxy Express.
Kinda. But then this girl gets like caught up into it. She's not a criminal or anything, but she ends up just through terrible luck, basically gets sucked up into this whole thing. And so they have like these like bomb collars around their neck that like if they like try to like deviate or like whatever or like sabotage the mission or escape, then like it'll fucking explode like Suicide Squad. And they need to go, and they rob the train, and it just keeps going from there, basically. It's essentially what I would want out of a single core action anime. Where, I mean, I'm not the biggest action guy, but in terms of like what I want an action anime to be like, this is basically it, where it knows exactly how to build it up to a peak. And then once it hits that peak, then it'll like let you back down a little bit, slow the pacing down, develop the characters a little bit more, build it up again, build it up to a peak. And it just kind of like does that. And I think as a result, it has a really just strong structure to it that then lends it to just really good characterization as a result, except for one guy who's like a fucking weirdo that doesn't actually get any development, and his like episode that's actually dedicated to him sucks. That's the one bad episode of the show, but apart from that, it's fucking phenomenal, and I love it. I love all of the different mysteries and setups and payoffs. The final mystery regarding the Kanto region and the way that is paid off is honestly insane, because it really recontextualizes stuff that was set up prior in the show in ways that are really interesting that I just took for granted. I wasn't even really thinking about it. And then it was like, oh, that was actually significant. Holy fucking shit. And yeah, just a really, really, really great show. It's a damn shame people don't talk about it more, because it's original anime. It didn't really have any tie-ins like a Cyberpunk Edgerunners. It did not take off as much as Cyberpunk Edgerunners, but was it's still pretty popular. It's the character designer, I think maybe also the writer behind Danganronpa, which you can obviously very much tell from the designs. But
yeah, they look very Danganronpa-ish.
They do look very Danganronpa-ish, which may
very
be a turn off for some people.
Paul coded.
Yeah.
So when did they fight the Rail Tracer?
The what?
The Rail Tracer.
What's the Rail Tracer?
I think his name is Claire. It's all bloody. He's all red, and he's like, "I'm the Rail Tracer."
What the fuck are you talking about?
Aren't you talking about Baccano? The Baccano remake?
No.
You're not?
No.
Oh. You were talking about like a train heist. I just spaced out. I thought you were talking about Baccano. Like, oh.
No. Well, maybe that's why more people haven't seen Akudama Drive. They just watch Baccano instead.
Maybe more people watched Akudama Drive and they thought it was Baccano.
Akudama Drive has a strong structure to it, and Baccano has like a schizophrenic structure to it. Yeah, honestly, we need to just sit down. I'd be down to rewatch it, honestly. Because you got to watch it. I got to force Lex to watch it. I think we had Hoppy Console Gamer on. I think I also recommended it to him. I don't know if he watched it, but yeah, if you want that Cyberpunk Edgerunners itch scratch, and you like crime and like sci-fi dystopian settings with crazy people, go watch Akudama Drive.
Well, I guess
also, banger fucking opening.
I don't know the opening. Unfortunate.
Rip. Anyway,
the opposite of that. We're gonna go from a cyberpunk setting to fantasy.
Cyberpunk action, fast-paced, dystopian. I guess this next one also has psychopath characters.
It's it's a fantastical fantasy setting, slice of life, slow paced, got your elves. Everyone loved this show is airing.
Yeah,
You
it's very just
probably guessed it.
relaxing. Nothing
Probably
nothing bad
guessed
ever happens.
probably guessed what it is by now. Everyone loves it. It's Dungeon Meshi.
Of course. Yes. Everyone, yeah, the fantasy show with elves and dwarves and it's like nice and relaxing.
Yeah.
Dungeon Meshi is
I
a
mean,
fucking nightmare.
it's pretty relaxing a lot of the time. Let's be like they're just like sitting around outside of when they're like, I don't know, get like a mandrake fucking
Yeah, no,
soup or something.
bad things happen. Well, that's kind of like I don't think we fucking need to explain what Dungeon Meshi is. Oh, it's Heart of Darkness with dungeon cooking.
It is a very schizophrenic show, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, well,
I feel like we might have talked about it, but in case it needs reiterating,
mm-hmm.
my love for Dungeon Meshi stems from a very similar place to my love for what's the title?
Ishizuka Reviewers.
Ishizuka Reviewers, yes.
Yeah, you are the only person who feels this way, by the way.
Probably so.
No one else has ever made this comparison.
Maybe when I explain myself, people will understand.
Go on.
So, because like I'm very tired of the fantasy setting.
Oh no, I'm just tired.
I mean, I'm that too, but I'm also very specifically. I'm more tired of like the fantasy setting in like shows. I've never really been like a fan of fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
I've always kind of preferred like the sci-fi. I liked Fallout more than the Elder Scrolls kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
I've appreciated stuff like Lord of the Rings, but I've never really got into it. I like it more than like Star Wars, but
right.
Is that a fucking low bar to clear? But
you like the hard sci-fi elements where it's like really like defining stuff and getting into like the nitty-gritty details, like Dungeon Meshi.
So they both kind of seem like a similar conceit in a way to me. Ishizuka Reviewers is kind of taking this concept of like, hey, what would it be like to live in these fantasy worlds, right? Like everyone's fucking horny for these like elf girls or these salamander girls or whatever the fuck. What would be the logistics of this? And how would each like species kind of interact sexually with one another, right? Like what would Legolas be fucking attracted to if he were a real person, right?
It's true.
We just assume we just project like our own like human experience on these different races or whatever, because it's just like you don't think about that thing too much, right? Unless you're just really into fucking Legolas, then maybe
you're a real side. I actually have. Hold on, 1 second. There's a point to this. Just give me a second.
I don't know if I'm concerned or apprehensive. I don't know what the word is for
Hold on.
My confusion as to why you've stopped me in the middle of explaining this sex show and you've now left your microphone.
Because I have a book. I have a book that is also similar to this. Do you know the Monster Girl Encyclopedia?
No.
Oh, you would like the Monster Girl Encyclopedia. It's literally, you remember like when like those scholastic book fairs in school and you would go and they would have like the Pokemon
you get the How to Draw
stuff.
Manga book and it would be
yeah. This is like that, but for adults.
Oh.
They should actually give these away at scholastic book sales in elementary school, honestly.
I think that would get them banned.
That would probably, that would almost certainly get them banned almost instantly. It would be a complete moral panic, but it would be really fucking funny, honestly.
At least for that like 5 minutes, you got away with it.
But yeah, if you want weird ideas to like jerk off to, or just for your D&D campaign, or I don't know, you just like reading about monster girls, it's kind of a banger, to be honest. It's really interesting in terms of like it's like, okay, it's kind of like the merger between like an Ishizuka Reviewers and a Dungeon Meshi, where it's like, okay, how can we make these monster girls fit into their ecology? How do they work in an ecosystem?
So, I mean, there's a bit of that. Like, obviously, they're just exploring it from like the character's perspective, right? So, like, the elves are like, this is what I value in a mate. The was it like the pixie people? I forget
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
little short thing is. He's like, oh, this is what I value in a maid or whatever. So you kind of go through all that.
Mhm.
And it builds this fantasy world in a way that's kind of like anchoring it into something that's relatable,
Mhm.
like sexuality.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to say on an anime podcast because no one's fucking
No,
around
I'm not
here.
having
But
sex. Certainly. I mean, I have a fucking copy of the Monster Girl Encyclopedia. Do you think I
listen,
fuck?
all
Of
right,
course not.
yeah. How how well do you think pulling out this copy of the Monster Girl Encyclopedia goes over on the
This
first
is
day?
literally
All right.
on my bookshelf next to the door where people walk into my apartment. All right. You walk in, that's like the first fucking thing they see next to like my Bunny Girl Reina figure. And it's like, oh yeah.
You're
Listen,
just
you're in my
literally
domain now.
gatekeeping. You're literally gatekeeping your apartment.
Yes, it's like, are you okay
You're
with this?
scaring the
If so, you
hoes.
may pass. You may enter.
Whereas Dungeon Meshi
Mhm.
seems like it comes from a very similar conceit where it's like, what are the logistics of like if you're gonna have these monsters in a fantasy world acting as these obstacles,
Mhm.
what would actually be the ecology and the ecosystem around these monsters that would make it sort of make sense? So
Mhm.
like you're grounding it in this real experience, this real kind of universal experience of just wanting to eat good food, not wanting to have to eat gruel or like tasteless shit all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they're exploring the culinary arts of what would be the best monsters to eat and for what reasons. And they're doing so in a way that is like kind of ingenious a lot of the
Mhm.
time, where they make connections to stuff I've never really like thought about.
Mhm.
So just like it's just a passing example, like mimics, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay, mimics exist. How do they fit into this like
How do they work?
ecosystem or whatever?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have, these fake gold doubloon bug things,
Mhm.
and they exist to eat the mimics from the inside, and they feed off of the mimics, and then they die,
It's
and
these,
then
like,
there's just like a chest. It's just like,
it-
oh,
it's literally like, do you remember like it was like on Animal Planet, like the show like Monsters Inside Me or stuff like that, where we go through like the
oh yeah,
life
yeah, yeah.
cycle of a parasite. It kind of has that in it. It feels like you're watching a documentary at times, but like my interest in it
No, no.
is
I would say it was like that dry or
no, hey,
boring.
documentaries aren't dry. Shut the fuck. I'll kill you. All right.
A
You
lot
take
of
that
them,
fucking back. I'll
that
beat you with the
presentation
fucking
style.
goddamn Monster Girl Encyclopedia, you fucker. But my interest in the show is different because I remember seeing like a lot of people when Dungeon Meshi was airing basically be like, it's not like other fantasy. It's not based on a video game. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yes, it is. It very clearly is. We have a party,
Based
we
on
have a
wizardry.
dungeon, we have all this. Like, and what's interesting to me about it is when you go back and you look at like roguelikes, like the classic Rogue, for example, the way the
Mhm.
game is paced is around the food mechanic. You need to, like, you can't just stay on one level for too long because there's only so much food on the level and you need to go further like down to get more food. So there's that constant balance that you need to be engaging with. But of course, the food in the dungeon, unless you're playing like a fucking weird one like Pathos, NetHack Pathos, is like it's just food. That's all it is. You can and you should actually eat the corpses of monsters in some games because then you gain resistances, but it's not going into like the preparation of eating those monsters. It's just like you just fucking eat them. So
Eat them raw.
my interest in it is because I'm not really someone who likes. I honestly just don't. I kind of hate the like. I like food. I do not like cooking. Cooking is like an annoying thing that I don't like to do. For
Common
context,
experience.
my daily like food intake is like 2 cups of white rice and a protein shake. Okay, that's what I eat in a day. Do you ever watch those like TikToks or YouTube shorts where it's like some like fitness influencer and it's like what I eat in a day and it's like all this like really like pretentious good looking food. I'm like, fuck that. No, that takes time. I'm like, you're telling me I'm going to spend an hour making a meal that I'm going to eat in 15 minutes and then spend the next 30 minutes cleaning my fucking kitchen? No. No. So the minutia of what's the dwarf character in Dungeon Meshi?
Senshi.
Senshi, like him getting into it and like the preparation and all that kind of stuff is just kind of like, I don't really care about how you're supposed to process this monster, to be honest. But I mean, that isn't like the only thing. That is the thing, though, is like Dungeon Meshi is not just a cooking show either. It is.
No, it's using that as a basis to like ground its world building. Because
Yeah.
the focus of the show is in the name. It's the dungeon.
Yeah.
Like that is that's the primary character. We followed the characters and they're very well fleshed out. They have a great dynamic. They're fun.
Yeah.
You root for them.
They're all just a bunch of weirdos.
They're all a bunch of weirdos. But the main character is the dungeon itself. Like it is fleshing out this ecosystem of this dungeon in such a way that's like super interesting to me. In a way that gets me into a fantasy show in a way that a lot of others are not ever going to be able to.
And for me, this is not on my top 10. This is nowhere near my top 10, to be honest. But for me, like the main appeal is the characters, but a lot of that characterization is then based around a subject matter that it's like the trite point people make about sports anime and manga, where it's like, if I don't like the sport, how am I supposed to enjoy this? But it's like one level further where it's like, I actively fucking hate this activity. How am I supposed to enjoy this? Like, I don't like to watch like Food Network stuff unless it's like Kitchen Nightmares, at which point the appeal of Kitchen Nightmares is in no way, shape, or form cooking. It is the horror. So I'm not like a big, I'm not like watching like binging with Babish or anything like that. I like a little bit of tasting history, but in general, for me, it's like a matter of like, I don't like food. I don't like cooking. I don't care about cooking. I'm actively disinterested in cooking. And if you talk to me about cooking, I'm going to tune you out.
I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily... I don't have like an interest in like ice skating or something, for example.
Well, yeah, but I also do not hate ice skating either. It's like imagine being a soldier. All right. You go off to war, you see your friends die, and you're like, yeah, you know what? War sucks, and I'm not going to watch any war movies. That's what cooking is like to me. It's war.
I feel this seems like an overreaction, but
do you know what I've lost? Do you know how much I've sacrificed in that kitchen?
Sometimes.
Anyway, Dungeon Meshi. it's a fun show. Again, I think the appeal for me is mostly just like the the video game aspects, which people don't talk about for some reason, but I think that's like the most interesting part.
I like that it really leans into the schizo shit, where it basically just, at least the first season, the second season already confirmed, it ends with them just being like, for us to solve the problem, we have to eat everything. We have to eat the dungeon.
Oh yeah, Lyle's just losing. Well, that's like the comparison to like a Maiden Abyss, where they are just kind of like descending further and further, and which people sell the show as being way darker than it actually is, which is weird.
Yeah,
like, I remember like there's like the one point where it's like, this is the real Dungeon Meshi, and then it just kind of goes back to like silliness, and it's like, yeah, again, this is a terrible way to sell your fucking like show. Honestly, it's like, oh no, this thing that you thought was actually cute and fun is actually fucking miserable. Suck my cock. And it's like, oh, I guess I'm not gonna fuck it. You're telling me I'm gonna have a bad time? No, fuck that.
Again, like I guess like it does get darker. Like the stuff with his sister is dark and like conceptually pretty dark, but I feel like it is a weird way to try to present the show, because it doesn't really feel like it like turns a corner and just becomes like some edgelord shit or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Which again, it's like that is like kind of how people were talking about it, as if it like becomes fucking Elfen Lied or something. And it's like, what are you doing? Why are you like this? People do the same thing with like Higurashi, which also annoys me, but that's not.
I feel like people just do this because like they have to sell it as like, oh, this is dark.
They're so fucking insecure. It's so annoying.
Yeah. But speaking of insecure, yeah, that's my number 9.
Number 9. All right. Now we're up to my number 8. Another show from 2024 that we talked about pretty recently. It is, there's no easy way to say this, but my wife has reincarnated as an elementary school student. Help.
Hold on, I'm dialing 911 right now.
Yeah, TsumaSho, which we talked about. We talked about, it was either, again, the last season, fall 2024, summer 2024. I can't fucking remember. It's pretty recent. Go back and listen to that episode if you want pretty fresh thoughts on that. But this is a show that really, really surprised me. Like, I went in, we started watching it, and I was like, this is pretty good. This will be fun. And then as the show progresses, in a very similar way to Akudama Drive, it's a nice, concise experience. It's just a full story told in a single core. And as the show progresses, it reveals its hand more in terms of like what kind of story it is, to the point by like halfway through you're like, okay, yeah, I understand what this is about and what the end game is. This is going to be really sad. I'm going to mentally prepare myself. I'm not going to cry. I watched the last episode and I'm sobbing. My day is ruined because it's really fucking sad. It's a really nice show, and I think a lot of people get turned off by the premise and title because it's my wife is reincarnated as an elementary school student.
The fuck's this P. Diddy shit?
Yeah, but what I love about it is that it takes that subject matter so seriously and deals with the ramifications of it in a very like good, like well-intentioned manner, where it's like, it's kind of like that thing when we watched Bookworm. We watched Bookworm, and mind basically reincarnates into the body of someone who already existed. And a similar thing happens in TsumaSho. So it's then like, what happened to that little girl? How's this impacting her relationship with this little girl's family, and what's going on there? And how do her parents feel about that kind of stuff? And it is like a really fucked up situation. It's fundamentally tragic. And that's what I love about the show, is it handles that so well. It takes this like bad situation, plays it out, and you get a lot out. It's not like it's like, oh, this is just miserable. You get if anything, it's necessary that you get a lot of like nice positivity, healing aspects out of it, so that by the end, much like the characters, you've kind of been repaired in a sense, or, at the very least, you've
healed.
You've healed. And then
healed to a point you can accept what's coming.
Yeah, and it gives you this just nice bittersweet send off at the end.
I remember
I was so surprised by it, and I dearly love it. It came out way higher on my list than I initially expected it to.
I remember we had a lot of debates about this as it was airing, where it was like, you feel like it might go in one direction. There are problems with that direction that you feel like it's going to go, and then it surprises you and does not go in that direction at all. And you're like, oh, yeah, I was not expecting that. That's kind of cool.
And it's not like a matter of like, oh, it's subverting your expectations, because these are expectations that you kind of form through just different means, and it doesn't necessarily come across like it's intentionally setting up those expectations to subvert them, as much as it feels like just a very natural progression of events and these characters' feelings.
It almost is like a commentary in a way of like your expectations, I guess, because like the premise of it is like you are automatically coming out from the offset with like a bias against it for some people, because you're like, what the fuck is this premise? What the fuck is this title? And then like it does do a couple things, like toward the end with the coworker.
Oh yeah,
and like it very much intentionally sets that up, and you're like, oh, okay. I don't know how I feel about that. And then it's like, no, we actually aren't doing that. You're like, oh,
yeah.
Okay, I'm familiar with your game now.
yeah. And again, what the story fundamentally is about is it is just a grappling with like loss and grief, and I think it just handles that so well. It's if you like stuff that kind of just like just leaves you just emotionally wrecked by the end, in a good way. Like a Clanad or any other like cry porn like that. Yeah, highly recommend it.
But don't watch it if you're Christian.
No, this will violate your beliefs.
Well, no, because then you're just like the whole time you're like, oh, this is a demon. You can't talk to the dead.
Can you imagine TsumaSho when it becomes The Exorcist? So by the end, they have like tied down to the fucking bed or like trying to cast the demon out as like the mother in the child of the body is just like, what the fuck are you doing? Untie me.
Well, they like suggest that at one point, don't they? Like, oh, do we need an exorcist?
They do, because there are mild spoilers, and it's not necessarily reincarnation that has happened, but that's all I'll say about that.
She's no K-Dot.
No. But yeah, definitely do not sleep on this one. It is just a beautiful story, honestly.
I thought it was pretty good too.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 8 movie?
My number 8 is Sonny Boy.
Oh my god.
I couldn't think of a funny, clever way to transition into that.
There's no, yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah, Sonny Boy. Another this is the first original on yours. So
yeah.
What is
first anime original?
I mean, so it's on your list, but not mine, even though I have said that I need to go back.
I noticed that and I was like, what the fuck? How?
It's because I need to go back and like rewatch it to really like evaluate my feelings on it, and I just have not done that yet.
Oh my god.
But since it's on your list, dude, guess what? You have the task of explaining what the fuck Sonny Boy is. Good luck.
So Sonny Boy is when you take the drifting classroom, take it out back, put a gun to its head.
Yep. Say it in a way that's not going to get us demonetized.
Skull fuck the shit out of it. No, so these kids get like quote unquote isekai, not really, to some weird planeless void with the school. They're trying to figure out how to escape. There's all these new rules.
These kids now have superpowers somehow.
They now have superpowers that also follow these rules.
They've been there by the time the first episode starts. They've been there for like weeks, seemingly. They don't need to eat or anything.
Starts in media res.
Yeah.
And it just kind of brings you up to speed, and then they get out, and that's episode 1, and you're like, oh, what is going on here?
I have no idea. I watched this show while it aired, and a perpetual feeling I had is I have no idea where this is going until the final episode, where I was like, I get it now. It all makes sense.
I feel like I started understanding where it was going after episode 5 or 6.
Yeah, I got the monkey baseball episode. I got a little bit better of an idea, but in terms of what it was like talking about, but in terms of where the story was going, it is the definition of unpredictable.
Well, yeah, you're not gonna be able to predict like exactly where it's gonna be going or
what's gonna happen in the next episode. I just watched it and I don't even know what the fuck happened.
But it does become kind of clear what it's generally kind of doing in like broad strokes after the monkey baseball episode.
Which, well, and even before that, it is like clear. Like you go back and like rewatch those episodes, and like you have
when you have the idea, it becomes much more obvious.
Yeah, and you're kind of able to start putting stuff together. Is that what the show ultimately is a coming of age story about middle school students in which they are grappling with growing up and, coming to the terms with the world around them, which is being presented in a very abstract and surreal way to kind of convey the like absurd and almost how arbitrary these things even seem to them.
Right.
But at the same time, it's also not a story where it's just like, oh, it just all takes place in the character's head or whatever. No, because it's a lot more deliberately ambiguous than that, and to have any sort of like concrete interpretation of what the hell happened in Sonny Boy, it actively like it works to undermine that, because part of the point of it is that it does not make sense.
You're not meant to understand all of Sonny Boy.
No,
At
at
the
least
end of
not
the
in
day.
like a literal sort of like way that you can like verbally communicate. It's very much like
Right.
a matter of like you
The
just
truth inside the story kind of
yeah,
thing.
it's something that you kind of just kind of like clicks with you almost like in an implicit level that you can't quite articulate in words, essentially. Um
It's like fully coolly if it were Angel's Egg.
it very much feels to me like a successor to Fooly Cooley, because Fooly Cooley is, you know, about Naota, who is growing up. He's going from elementary school into middle school, and he's coming to terms with the world around him. He's very angsty and angry at everyone. And you know, he's kind of like resentful of like all the adults in his life, and all it's, you know, everything that happens in it is kind of like an abstract manifestation of that. Sonny Boy to me then is like the next step of that, where it's like you've gone, you know, you've gone through middle school, you're moving into high school, you're becoming even more of an adult, you're being exposed to more of the world, and you know, from the perspective of Nagara, the main character, he's just kind of like burnt out. Basically,
Yeah.
he's a very like impassive like observer character. He doesn't have like strong feelings about anything. He's just like, I mean, and that may be a turnoff for some people, is that he's kind of like a wet blanket. But for me, I think his character makes a lot of sense, especially in terms of like the anxieties that you experience growing up. Because, like, you know, Nagara's power is, you know, like a roll of the dice, all these different worlds and paths in front of you in life that you don't necessarily really have clear control over. And yeah, that can just kind of like, that can be a real bummer to say the least.
Say the least.
Um,
Yeah.
uh,
But it's very
uh,
visually striking.
yes,
There's
it
a,
is one of
like,
the best looking shows of the decade, honestly.
yeah, it
Very,
does take it being an anime original into full effect.
it is what we call screenshot core. Every frame is basically a painting. It's just wonderful to look. I mean, we were talking about Keiichiro Saito earlier. He directed maybe the best episode of the show, which is the one with the dog and the
Yeah, the
dog's backstory.
dog of death.
So even before Bocchi, he was certainly putting out hits, to say the least.
Still
And
making peak.
and yeah, it's one of those things, yeah, where your tolerance for abstraction and the ideas that something is working with, rather than necessarily having like super satisfying emotional character arcs or a clear and coherent story with a sensible structure. Sonny Boy is definitely a show that is testing and will put your patience to the sword, to say the least, especially Monkey Baseball. But if that's not really a barrier for you, then it is potentially something that you could really jive with.
Or you might just come away with it and be like, oh, that's pretentious shit.
That was pretentious, fucking obnoxious. This good the director's an asshole or something. Um,
Not an
it's like,
uncommon opinion.
and it's like, oh, what? Oh, there's no clear explanation, because like that is kind of the point. Is that like the the point of the show? I believe. What's the director's name? Shingo Natsume is it's like gravity. We don't really have like a good theory of what gravity is. We don't really have a good idea of what it is, but nonetheless, it is something that like affects us at every point in our lives. So, you know, just because you don't necessarily understand something, just because something doesn't necessarily make sense, doesn't mean it can't or just doesn't affect you, which is like kind of like the
Right.
core. I think that's like the what is necessary to really get a hold and kind of start to wrap your head around Sonny Boy.
It's a show that you can watch over and over again, get a new thing out of it each time, focus on a different thing, and I
It
don't think it'll
is
depreciate very much.
It is definitely, and this is why I want to rewatch it and why I think it would end up on my top 10, is that of any show this decade, it is definitely the show that has lived rent free in my head the most. Even more so than like, a lot of like the top of my list here. It's just the show that I like keep thinking about it and wondering about it and being like, man,
Keep
this
coming
is
back
like,
to it.
yeah, yeah. It also doesn't help that like I keep listening to the soundtrack as well.
Oh, soundtrack's a banger.
Banging soundtrack. I mean, that's
Which
weird
you
to
will
say.
not understand us saying that after the first episode because
You'll
there's
be
like
like,
no
where the fuck
music.
is the music? But
Where's
yeah,
my
I mean,
banger
that's another.
soundtrack?
But by the time you get to the last episode, you'll see what we mean.
I bought that
Uh,
shit on vinyl.
it's funny. It's on your list. I feel like I had more to say.
Uh, yeah,
So I guess
my number 8.
Yeah, all right. I guess it's back to me now for my number 7, which is Dededede Destruction, another recent show from 2024 that we've already talked about quite a bit. And I mean, spoilers, this is higher up on Mumi's list, so Mumi's probably going to have more to say about it, but I don't know, it's great. It's it's the best anime adaptation of an Inio Asano manga. It's also the only one.
Only one. It's not his only character designs, at least, though.
It's technically true, but I guess do we need to explain what Dededede is about? I feel
Uh,
like I feel
aliens.
like despite this being an adaptation of a very popular mangaka's work, the work that is itself very fairly popular, it has a star-studded voice cast where it has the girl from Yoasobi, and then who voices the other one?
I don't
Ano,
know.
Ano, who is like another like big Japanese like pop artist. They voice the main characters of the show, and they do a fucking phenomenal job with it, honestly. Ano
Yeah,
as
Oron.
Oran is like insane. And they haven't done like any other voice acting work, so it's like, well, shit. But it has all this stuff going for it, and despite that, where is this on the popularity on my anime list? Where
Very
does this?
low.
Yeah, it
No, I
is.
don't know. Some of that might be because it is being cannibalized by the movies, too, maybe.
But those movies never got released in the U.S.
Are they online?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Um,
well.
yeah. So this is it, it has 51K members on my anime list. It's like popularity rank is below 3,000, which
Yeah.
is honestly just insane. I don't understand why this anime is overrated, if I'm going to be honest. What the fuck is wrong with people?
Overrated?
Underrated. Did I say overrated?
You said overrated. I was like,
Oh
damn.
no. It's like it's incredibly underrated because it's like there's like there I don't I, it isn't even a matter of quality. It's just a matter of like the circumstances of this. It should be fucking more popular than it is.
It is insane because I kind of hinted at it. This was like 2 films
Yeah.
that they then expanded on and turned into a 17 episode series.
Yes.
So it is every bit as much of a film adaptation, just 16 episodes.
I mean, it doesn't have any like lacking pace. So for anyone who doesn't know what Day-to-Day is about, it's about an alien invasion that takes place. But as a result of that alien invasion, I mean, the world just kind of goes on. Things just kind of remain the same by and large, and it's following these different characters in their daily lives about, just trying to just trying to keep on keeping on. There may be a giant alien spaceship and a giant part of Tokyo that was destroyed, but you still got to go to school, still got to worry about, what you're going to do after you graduate.
The shoe hasn't dropped yet, so you just gotta
Just
keep going to work.
gotta keep going. And
stimulate that economy.
It is both a wonderful slice of life, a hilarious and incisive political satire, and also a deeply horrifying and probably realistic depiction of the fact that if aliens did invade, we would probably just kill ourselves before they killed us.
It is very deeply cynical, which is very funny.
It's Inio Asano, so it's very cynical, but then very earnest and humanistic as well. It's in many ways the opposite of like a Gurren Lagann, where it's like humans we can overcome anything. Whereas this is like
humans, they will get in each other's ways no matter fucking what.
It's like it's very much that Kino no Tabi kind of thing, where it's like the world is beautiful because it's ugly, you know?
Yeah. This is it's very funny because I know in like interviews, because for anyone that's not familiar with Asano's work in manga, they're very fucking depressing.
Yes, he is the sad boy. He's like
the sad boy of manga.
Sad boy mangaka.
In interviews, he said that he wanted to make this like, he's like, ending wise, I want this to be a happy ending. I don't want this to be fucking sad boy shit. And this somehow becomes. It does have a happy ending, but it is like simultaneously the most cynical of his work, I think.
Yes. Like, and is the most cynical, but also the most hopeful in terms of how it ends. Because it ends in a way that like subverts your expectations, where it's like, okay, yeah, everything's fucked up, everything is wrong, and then it in an act of, it's almost like the opposite of like a story where it's like things are going well, and then just right at the end everything falls apart and it all goes to shit. This does the exact opposite, where it basically says, fuck you, you get a happy ending anyway.
Everything
it's denying you that tragedy.
I mean, it does. Unlike his other work, it does give you that tragedy. Like that tragedy does come to fruition in some capacity, and then it's like, we're not ending here. Fuck you. Here you go. Here's your happy ending.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I feel like it could. I think it could be valid to feel like, oh, that's kind of a bit of a cop out, but
a little bit.
I feel like it's very much well
doing
earned.
that begrudgingly either. It's not like, well, I guess people still want a happy ending, so it doesn't feel half-assed. It feels very intentional, or it almost feels like, again, like the opposite, where it's like it's resentful of the fact that it has a bad ending, so it does a good ending anyway.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we have to note something. The way this was released, and this did them no favors as far as popularity is concerned, do not watch episode 0. Under no circumstances should you watch episode 0 of this show. Episode 0 is episode 16. Okay? Yeah, so you watch episodes 1 through 15, watch episode 0. No, sorry. You watch, it's 18 episodes. So you watch episodes 1 through 17, then you watch episode 0, and then you watch the final episode. I don't know why they did that. Maybe it has something to do with the movie release, but that's something you very much need to keep in mind if you are going to watch this show, which you absolutely should.
That's how we watched it, mind you.
Yes.
And that is...
We are better off for it.
Yeah, like we were watching it, we're like, why would you start with this?
It's not a good first impression, to say the least.
Yeah, it's
very confusing. It does not like set anything up really.
Not a good, not friendly for the anime onlys.
Yeah. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, I don't know. I think we talked about a little bit, I think too, when Joe was on. It has that sort of like, you know, Japanese apocalypticism, endless everyday aspect going on, which I quite like. Again, yeah. I love the political satire. It's so bitter. That's like, again, that's like where a lot of that bitterness feels directed, is like you have this like, people in government are like incompetent or just outright malicious. But then you have like these nicer like slice of life moments with the principal characters, and that's like what the core of the story is.
Yeah. Good show.
Good show.
Won't spoil where it is on mine, but we'll figure it out.
Well, next up, you have another entry that's going to be on mine. Moomin, what's your number 7?
Number 7 is another 2021 anime right after Sonny Boy. Ousama Ranking, which we did do a video on this one.
We did.
I don't know if it's still public.
I Maybe, probably not. That video kind of
It'd be
sucked, to be honest.
yeah, it's unlisted, so it's not like you can't find it. It's
But
just probably
if you
not.
want to watch it, yeah, you got to do a little bit of a scavenger hunt.
You know, got some homework to do.
But what is Ousama Ranking about, Mumi?
So it's basically very by the numbers fantasy story on from the outset, but the main character is deaf.
Yes,
and he's presented as very much as like this kind of bumbling oaf kind of character. And you're
dopey
like,
little
is
kid.
this gonna be? Yeah, it's gonna be like the emperor has no clothes kind of situation.
Really gullible, you know.
It builds up all these expectations for a couple episodes, and then it dashes them very beautifully. And I don't mean that in like it just like completely destroys, like, oh fuck you. It's just like it takes those, subverts it in a way that's very nice, and it's just like, oh yeah, I appreciate this. Thank you.
You get like you're continually getting new perspectives on different characters that have already been established. And I mean the core of the show is it is like this kind of like action adventure story, but it takes place in this seemingly archetypal fantasy setting. Like, you got like your like evil stepmother or whatever, yada yada yada, court politics. Everyone seems to be going against our underdog main character. And it almost comes across like, he's eventually going to like get his revenge or something like that. But no, it turns out, none of these people are necessarily assholes. They're just trying to do what they think is right. And, they're not trying to like wrong people necessarily. It all is just a matter of circumstances and perspective.
Yeah, like the evil stepmother, it turns out, really does care for the main character, the protagonist. It's just that she just thought this was a dangerous position for him to be in and wanted to protect him.
Yeah. The evil voice in the mirror turns out to have a whole lot of other baggage going on. The seemingly noble, all-powerful king is more fallible than you may initially think.
I really appreciate the kind of core message of like not conforming to this sort of perceived norm of like what people should be.
Yeah. Following the expectations of like what has been laid out for you in life.
Right. Because like it deals a lot with prejudice, both in what we're talking about, how it subverts your ideas of what prejudices kind of come about when you see these characters, these archetypes come up.
Like, he's going to be going to like the demon world next. Oh man, what's going to happen? It's like, oh, these guys are awesome.
Oh, they're just cool. They're just fun guys. They're just
cool
hanging
guys.
out. But like with him, Bocchi's the main character. Not
Bocchi. This is an annoying thing. Bocchi, Bojji.
Bocchi. He's the main character. He deals with a lot of prejudices because he's deaf, and so people don't understand. He can't hear them because he can read lips, and he's learned to be able to communicate with them anyway. But because he's deaf, he can't speak to them. And so you could draw your own conclusions on how that kind of comes across when deaf people speak to children or people that are kind of just more ignorant of that kind of thing, and how that's going to be perceived as far as prejudices go. They very much take that and they kind of show like how that could be a strength, because Bocchi obviously spent a lot of time kind of cultivating his sense of sight, trying to understand others, and so he's much more empathetic, and that is a strength of his, because like even when he's fighting, it ultimately kind of shows like as it progresses, he is able to kind of see people's weak points because he is so, kind of empathetic and in tune, and has that eye for detail that you wouldn't necessarily have if you're not so focused on trying to understand people.
And he exploits those weak points in a way that then makes sense with his character, where he's not like fucking Ken from Fist of the North Star, where he's just fucking murdering everyone.
Yeah, it didn't turn into fucking Mad Max or some shit.
No. Which that is like a complaint though, is that he does become he does become the most powerful person in the world, like overnight almost. But again, it
It
does
is
it
kind
in
of
a
silly,
way.
but yeah, I think
It's
it's
still
fine.
fitting, and
Yeah.
uh, there's also just still so much going on. Which again, that maybe also be a criticism, is it kind of becomes a little bit of a clusterfuck towards the end, where you have like all of these different characters, they're all doing different things, and you got to keep track of them like all the time. Sometimes Kaze. If I did have any criticism, Kaze, who is like his like little Shadow Clan
Kage.
thief friend, Kage,
Kage.
yeah,
Yeah.
he
Kaze's
doesn't.
wind.
He
Kage
does
is
kind
shadow.
of. He does kind of like fall by the wayside towards like the end of the story. He's kind of just like on the sidelines cheering
He has
Bocchi
less to
on.
do. Yeah, he kind of is mainly just like a voice for Bocchi for a
Yeah,
lot of it.
a good
Because he can't
companion.
speak. Yeah, he just
Uh,
acts as an interpreter.
Which there is something to also be said. This is not a complete adaptation either, and the story
Mm.
does end in a way that very much feels like it's like setting up stuff to come. Like the title of the show is Ranking of Kings, and this whole first season has basically nothing to do with the ranking of kings.
No.
You think it's going to be a story about, oh, he's going to be like rising up the rank or whatever. No, if anything, that seems like what the next season is going to be about, if there ever is one.
There was one.
Oh, there is a follow-up series, which is basically B-sides, which are also wonderful, by the way. Very
It's
nice.
B-sides, but also a sequel. It also follows up the story of season one,
yeah.
like directly.
But then like the manga is still itself ongoing as well.
Right.
So
I think what
go
really
check
puts it high on my list though is like the production values.
It is
honestly
really well animated. Some just insanely well done fights. And I just also love the aesthetic. Like, we watched this as it was airing, and we went in with basically no expectations. We saw the poster, and we were like, "Oh, this looks like kind of dumb." This looks.
It's like it looks like fucking what's the joke in the video? It's like the magic tree house or something.
some stupid, this fucking dumbass looking kid or whatever.
Boji for breakfast.
And then I was not expecting this to have just some of the most impeccable action I've seen this decade. Honestly, there's still scenes that I will like point to in terms of like, look how fucking good this is. Oh my god.
It does remind you that Studio Wit really wanted to do things that were not Attack on Titan.
Yeah,
just wanted to do things out there.
I mean, but holy shit, though, you can still definitely see the Attack on Titan influence, especially in that final fight. So yeah, if you again, if you like fantasy stuff, if you like adventure, if you like really strong action, definitely also give Ousama Ranking a check as well.
It is a good show. It's my number 6, right? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, you're number 6, which brings us to my number 5, which is Bocchi the Rock. So Bocchi the Rock is about this girl named now. So we already talked about that. Did we then?
No, that was my number 7.
Oh,
so Bocchi's your number 6.
No, we just talked about data. So we just talked about Dededede.
Okay, Senpai was your 10th. Akuma was 9th. TsumaSho was 8th. Dededede
so
was
that was
7th.
Dededede was also my 7th. So now we're on to my 6th, which is Bocchi. And so we've already talked about Bocchi. So I guess do we want to talk about your 6th then, since we haven't talked about that?
Mine's another one that we made a video on.
Yeah, this is true. Are you seeing a pattern here, ladies and gentlemen?
Do a lot of videos on my favorites.
Yes, and not a lot of videos on mine.
Be the change you want to see. My number 6 is Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
Oh my god. Have you seen Akudama Drive,
oh my god.
Hey, dude, it's just like Akudama Drive, trust me.
Does Cyberpunk Edgerunners, does that need an introduction? I think everyone.
I think literally everyone on Earth has seen Cyberpunk Edgerunners by this point.
I mean, if you haven't, I'm just gonna. Since we skipped your number 6, we're just gonna skip mine. Basically, if you want to know our thoughts, we talked about it in the video.
That's a good video that is well made, and yeah,
it was the first well made of the It's probably the first one that's quote unquote an official.
It's our most
video.
viewed video too. So
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Have you not? Why have you not seen it yet? Go watch it. It's good. It's
no
great.
excuse. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
And my number 6.
All right. My number 6 is Lycoris Recoil. Lycoris Recoil. Wait, what?
That's your 5.
Is it my 5? Wait.
Yeah.
So we did my 6. I didn't.
Yeah, we skipped our 6s.
We have
Yours
our
was
lists,
Bocchi.
but we didn't bother to number them, so we're just kind of eyeballing it. So yeah, my number 5 is Lycoris Recoil. We also have a video about this.
Yeah.
That one's not as good.
It's pretty good.
It's all right.
They came out after. No, it came out around, like, I think literally like right before.
Yeah, that was when we were still like making videos like that. But yeah, Lycoris Recoil is basically a slice of life action kind of Yuri gun girl show about two girls. It's who I'm now blanking on their names.
Chisato
and Takina. And basically the setup for the story is Takina, they're part of this secret underground organization of girls with guns who, anytime someone is about to commit a crime in Japan, they step in and execute them before they are able to commit that crime. By the way, like a few days after the first episode aired, someone blew a fucking massive hole in the back of Shinzo Abe.
Yeah.
So that's really funny to think about. But it is very satirical in that way because it very much makes this point where it's like there's this perception of Japan as this clean, safe society, but that is basically maintained through like incredibly Orwellian practices. But it makes that criticism without like rubbing your nose in it like you're a fucking dog. It's just kind of something that is like acknowledged, and then it trusts the audience to pick up on that, and then have the like maturity and like, you know, media literacy to then be like, okay, I understand that, but I still want to see these like cute girls do stuff with like guns and fight crime and stuff. I understand that this is like a weird fascist secret police thing, and you know what? That's okay because they're cute. Which I honestly, I love that.
You do have that step on me mommy energy.
And this is like what, like hit one of Hideo Kojima's like favorite anime. It was really funny seeing him like as he's like watching the show and just like tweeting about it constantly, being like, holy fucking shit. I think it's like he was like hanging out with the director of Drive, like Nicholas Refn, something like that, and they just have Lycoris Recoil shirts on. It's very cute.
He did talk about Shimatsu Train while he was watching it too.
Oh yeah. Hideo Kojima, if you ever want to come on our podcast,
you want to talk about Shimatsu Train? I'll talk to you about Shimatsu Train. Talk about Look Back. Lycoris Recoil.
But yeah, and then basically the way the show works is it's like fairly episodic. You know, it's just like, you know, a mix of like goofing off, doing missions, and also there is this kind of like underlying plot that you kind of get breadcrumbs for and is progressively built up over the course of the show. And then like the last few episodes deal with that directly as it all kind of comes to a head and like culminates. Which I think some people took issue with, like the idea that like it becomes so much more serious towards the end. But to me, from like just a storytelling perspective, that's kind of what I expected and wanted. Like I could very well describe my favorite anime, Planetes, as like that as well. And I think it was handled both in terms of how it was set up as well as how it ended up paying off in a very, very, very good way. I love the just kind of like good-natured, like positive energy of the show. A lot of that obviously comes from like Chisato, and like, you know, Takina's character arc is like she's very gung-ho about killing people, Whereas, Chisato is like this like Vash character where she even has like these special bullets that do not kill people. Instead, they just turn into a red mist that kind of looks like blood and doesn't penetrate skin, but does somehow penetrate car doors. I don't know, it doesn't fucking need to make sense.
No.
So it's kind of like talking to them kind of like, learning to live life in a sense. She learns to wear boxers instead of just panties, which, yes, there's like a full episode dedicated to them going to the aquarium and going underwear shopping, and it's beautiful.
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss. Plus, it has a really strong side cast. I love everyone that's at the cafe. You've got Mika, who is like this like disabled black guy that is also gay and is kind of also a badass. You have the late 20s Christmas cake fail girl Mizuki, who just really wants a date. You have the lolly hacker Kurumi, and then you have the villain of the show, the Joker. The Joker, Majima. Who, I mean, really, actually, after watching Ichi the Killer, he kind of feels more similar to that, honestly.
Yeah.
And I like his character quite a bit as well, because he does act as like a foil to Chisato, but he's not like a complete asshole. Basically, they have like this like really funny scene where they're like, he like breaks into her apartment and they're sitting down talking, and they have like the same taste in movies, and it's kind of to this like implicit like you and I aren't so different after all kind of thing.
It's handled really well. A lot of dialogue in general was handled really well in this show.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the core of the show is that dynamic between Chisato and Takina, and they have such like great chemistry and banter, and the way they play off each other is great. I mean, you get that like just directly like in the opening, like where they're walking down the street and they're like kicking each other in the butt, and like Chisato does it playfully, and then Takina tries to do it playfully, but it's still like too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, nice show. If you like cute girls with guns, I feel sorry for you. We don't get enough of those anime anymore, but definitely check this one out because it's one of the best.
I was curious. I was looking at my top 25 of the decade.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't make my top 25.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's because for me, I loved how it was like setting stuff up, and then the way what really sealed it for me is the way it's able to like capitalize and pay off on all of those setups at the end of the story, and it does it in a way that it manages to get serious but without feeling edgy or grimdark, and it's like it just becomes like suffering porn.
I agree with you. I do think like that might be part of like I think that kind of arc, it becoming more serious, was part of what detrimented it for me a bit.
You wanted it to like really challenge their ideals. You're the Madoka fan.
The Madoka.
You wanted this show to be written by Urobuchi, whereas I like this show specifically because it was not written by Urobuchi.
I mean, I would have been fine if it was written by or directed by Seiji Kishi or something, where they would rein him in. They're like, oh, we can push it to the brink, but we're
not doing your weird rape porn, dude.
All right, you keep your fetishes at the door. But yeah, I like it's great action, great characterization. I like the show. I just looking at it, I'm like, I can see why. I mean, my number 25 is Kageki Shoujo, which
it's a matter of
talk about, but
of like this has like stuff that resonates more with me specifically. I mean, that's also why like Ousama Ranking is also probably like higher on my list, is like what Ousama Ranking is doing, I think resonates and has stuff that I value in media, like just implicitly, like more than you. Like if something is doing that, then it's going to hit home more with me as a result.
Well, speaking of hitting home more,
there is a sequel, by the way, that's coming out, so I'm curious to know how that pans out. I'm not opposed to it because I don't know. I like these characters. I want to see more of them, but it's also a matter of like
It did build itself to have a sequel.
a little bit, but we'll see what it does. It could fuck it up. It could, but it also could not. Speaking of sequels that don't fuck it up,
My number 5, which I honestly would not have expected to be on here, but I'm happy it is. Tatami
Yeah.
Time Machine Blues.
yeah, this is kind of wild because it's a sequel to, and this one just falls out of my top 10, but it's like a sequel to like one of our favorite anime ever, to the Tatami Galaxy,
yeah.
and it doesn't
It wasn't-
fuck it up is the thing.
Well,
It's
what's
able-
even weirder is it wasn't even originally written as a sequel. It was just a
No.
play, and then was kind of incorporated into being the Tatami characters, almost
Yeah.
kind of like in a Nightish short way, and then it was just made into a sequel.
Yeah,
Which is very it's very weird how well it works considering all those factors.
yeah, because it's a weird adaptation version of this movie called Summer Time Machine Blues, which was written by Makoto Ueda, and he has like it's based on a play he did of that same name, and then Makoto Ueda did not write Tatami Galaxy, but he did write the anime adaptation of it. So he wrote the anime adaptation of the Tatami Galaxy, but the Tatami Galaxy itself was written by Tomihiko Morimi, who then wrote the book The Tatami Time Machine Blues as like a sort of weird adaptation of Summer Time Machine Blues. And then when this gets adapted into an anime, which is also directed by Shingo Natsume.
Yeah. Number 2. I had 2 of them on my list, and you have none.
That's crazy. But when it was adapted into an anime, it was then written again by Makoto Ueda.
I would make a joke about how everyone just turned it off listening to that, but if they're this far into the podcast, they're still
they're stuck listening to it. Well, it's
that
fucking
was
weird
the joke
and complicated. And guess what? This is also weird and complicated.
That was the joke that we talked about, like having in the video if we were going to make a video on this.
Oh yeah, because we did consider making a video on this because we so for anyone who doesn't know, I guess we should probably explain. Tatami Galaxy is basically a guy basically going through a time loop every episode, and every episode he joins a different club in college,
at university.
Yeah, and he goes, and he basically like with every iteration, with every time loop, we get like more information and more perspectives on these characters that we didn't before.
Yeah,
and
it's like a kaleidoscope kind of thing where you see different characters from different perspectives, different clubs. You see different events from different perspectives because he's in a different place or whatever.
And at the end of basically every episode until the end, he's like, I've wasted my college years. Things would have been so much better if I only joined this club instead. So Tatami Galaxy is very much a story about looking back into the past and having regrets. Whereas the Tatami Time Machine Blues takes those same characters, but now it's like this weird like time travel story where they have this time machine. This character comes back on this time machine, and it's all the complications that have to deal with that because it's a result of like a remote for the air conditioning is broken or lost, and they have to find it again to avert some catastrophe in the future, which is why the time machine was made. And so it's all like those like paradoxes and stuff. But the core of the story is why we liked it so well is because thematically it complements the Tatami Galaxy very well by basically, instead of being about worrying about wasting the past, it's anxieties about the future.
Yeah. It really justifies its own existence in a way that I just was not, because for context, I loved the Tatami Galaxy.
Yes.
And then I watched the specials for the Blu-ray, and I'm like, oh, it's just fun little thing or whatever. And I fucking hated those. Like maybe my
I thought they were
reaction was
okay.
like, maybe my reaction's a bit overblown, but I really did not like those. I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, what the
I
fuck?
was just kind of like, oh, these are like funny little side stories with these characters. Like that was my mindset going into this. Is like, it'll be another adventure with these characters I like. I'm fine with that. And then I was pleasantly surprised with what it ends up doing thematically and how much there is to appreciate there.
Yeah, the episode 6, where it basically incorporates this whole plot into another arc of the Tatami Galaxy in a way.
Yeah.
But in a way that progresses it from, because like the Tatami Galaxy ends, it basically has the whole kind of theme of it's not about the most optimal path. It's about making the most of the path that you've chosen, kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Like it ends with him literally having the worst path. He's just stuck in this Tatami Galaxy that's like goes on infinitely.
He's like, fuck this. I'm not even gonna join a club. I'm not gonna leave my house.
I'm gonna leave my house. Can't even leave.
Because anytime I go outside, it's just another version of my apartment.
And then when he finally gets out is when he finally mans up and does all the things he wanted to do, because he's like, he now has that perspective where he's like, hell is what you make of it.
Yeah.
You could be in hell in paradise, or you could have paradise in hell. It's all a matter of like perspective, right?
By the way, do you want to take a break?
You think I'm dying?
You sound pretty rough. We can pick this up tomorrow, honestly.
3 days later.
I am recording.
So am I.
I guess that brings us to your.
So yeah, I guess
4?
let's pick this back up now. Yeah, where are we at? So we just got done talking about Time Machine Blues.
Oh, see, I was trying to go into it like we didn't leave. We didn't actually go anywhere. And you're like,
no, I'm not gonna. No. This is not this podcast will not maintain people's suspension of disbelief. All right. All right, we had to take a break because Mumi was literally like, you should have seen what he looked like. Pus was like coming out of like every or. It was grotesque and violent.
I woke up covered in pussy.
Pussy. So yeah, now we took a break and now we're back. Let's see so we covered Time Machine Blues. So that leaves us with our top 4 now. So I guess we go with my number 4 next.
Yep.
All right, so my number 4, it's telling me I need to recharge my headset. So let me just put like one of my earbuds in the goddamn charger.
God.
Oh my God, there we go. All right. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so my number 4 is an anime that came out all the way back at the start of the decade, back in winter of 2020.
Easy.
Crazy to think about how long it's been since this anime, honestly. It's Eizouken, yeah. One of the not the most recent TV anime from Masaaki Yuasa, I believe. Japan Sinks 2020 came out a little bit later in the year after this, but we don't need to talk about that.
We don't talk about Japan Sinks.
We don't know talk about that, but yeah, I guess because we should probably, even though Eizouken was pretty popular when it came out, that opening like did gangbusters, especially, and I still see it referenced, from time to time. But for anyone who doesn't know what Eizouken is, it's basically like a high school goofy slice of life comedy about 3 girls who just start an animation club essentially, and it's both a celebration of the art of animation and what makes it so great, while also being comically cynical towards like the industry elements of animation, the capitalist elements. It's a wonderful joy to watch, honestly. It's so visually creative and fun.
It makes me wonder how that would work as like a manga, because this is like a manga adaptation.
It is. It's always the weird. I mean, it's something that goes back to like Look Back. Even it's like Look Back is a manga about manga, but then it gets adapted into an anime, and then you have something like Eizouken or Shirobako started as a manga too, didn't it?
No, Shirobaka's original.
Shirabaku's an anime original. Okay. So yeah, then this starts off as like a manga about anime. I mean, even something like Pompo the Cinephile is like a manga about movies.
Yeah.
It's just like a weird thing in general. I do wonder how stuff is like, because I've not read the manga. I do have to wonder how stuff is like communicated and conveyed, because there are so many great animation set pieces in this show. So many like because over the course of it, they put together like 3 different anime shorts. And as someone who is a fan of independent animation, as I'm sure anyone who listens to this podcast semi regularly may have picked up on, is that
I never noticed.
You do watch like anime made by high schoolers, and you kind of see that, like, I mean, obviously what is being done in Eizouken is still nonetheless at a professional level, but you see like there are certain similarities, certain overlaps, concessions that need to be made that they actually talk about in the show. For example, the first short they put together is in black and white because it would take too much to color it. So you see stuff like that being done. You can actually watch animation done by like clubs in high school, and it's a lot of it like the same kind of stuff that ends up coming up, which is so interesting. And I dearly love the characters. They're all just like wonderful little like weird gremlins. It's great.
They're all gremlins in their own way.
They are, and it's just a really nice show. Again, I think it. Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's my favorite anime from Science Saru. I'm trying to think. It's not my favorite Yuasa anime, but it's definitely up there. It might be number 3 as far as like TV shows go. So it's like Tatami, Ping Pong, and then probably this. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a really, really great show. If you like animation, or you just, I don't know, just like comedy stuff, check it out. It's beautiful. It's great looking. Mumi, what did you think? Why is Eizouken not on your top 10 actually?
It's pretty high.
It's just a little bit below.
Yeah, where did I have it at actually? I'm curious. Cuz it's like it was in my top 10 of the decade for a while.
Yeah, I think it ended up getting like knocked off at some point.
Oh, it's number 15.
Okay.
Which
no.
3 of the shows
no.
above
Say it with the Chills voice.
Number 15.
Number 15. Number 15.
Which 3 of the shows that are above it were all last year, so it was much higher before last year.
Yeah. last year, 2024 honestly had a lot of bangers in it.
A lot of years have had a lot of bangers. Like 2021 had a lot of bangers.
Yeah.
fall 2022 specifically had a lot of bangers. 2023 was a bit of an outlier. 2023 didn't have a lot of bangers, but the bangers it had banged really hard.
Banged really hard, as we will soon get to.
Wait, isn't my next one 2023?
Your next? No, it's I don't know. I feel like we didn't end up talking about it. This is what happens. We lost our mojo because we're recording on a separate day, but it's fine. We can move on to your number 4, which wasn't this fall 2022 as well?
I don't remember actually.
Hold on. If this was fall 2022, then yeah, that might be one of the greatest the greatest season of anime this decade at least. Hold on. When did this come out? We're keeping people waited with bated breath to know what we could be talking about.
We are of course talking about Mob Psycho season 3.
Yeah, fall 2022. Jesus Christ. That this season had so much. Had Chainsaw Man, Bocchi the Rock, and this. Two of them have already
been on my top 10 of the decade.
Yeah, and then some like sleeper hits like Akiba Maid War, Do It Yourself.
People like that.
The first Slam Dunk, even though it's a movie, came out at this time as well. Jesus Christ,
that was a really good season. Yeah, when the next Summit, people love that shit.
And I should point out, by the way, this would be on my list, but I'm kind of weird in terms of like including sequel seasons. Because for me, like, it's Mob Psycho season 3. You've been through 2 seasons by this point, and I think that season 3 is still very, very much in line with those first 2 seasons, and it's like, I don't really have anything new to say. It doesn't distinguish itself enough from those prior seasons, so like, part of it is just because like my investment is then also couched in those prior seasons as well, so including it on here is just kind of, I don't know, it feels like a weird comparison then to like compare it to like stuff that I'm like, I'm getting off like fresh with, like Lycoris Recoil, Bocchi the Rock, stuff like that.
I'm eyeballing what you have coming up as you.
This is true. Well, don't worry, I'll explain that. Don't worry.
Okay. Yeah, Mob season 3. If you watched Mob season 1 or 2, you know what's going on, and if you haven't, I don't know why you're listening to us.
How are you? How have you not seen? I honestly, I don't know what is niche anymore. Is Mob Psycho niche?
Depends on the context.
Yeah, because I mean, it is a big show in an anime. It has hype moments in aura. I feel like it's very popular, but then again, it's like I could bring it up to someone, and like all they watch is like Jujutsu Kaisen and Solo Leveling, and we're like, I don't know what's Mob Psycho. Yeah. Oh, this is some dumb looking kid, and these character designs suck. And I'm like, oh.
I'm gonna be real though. Season 3 is not as strong as season 2.
I agree. I do like season 3 a lot. I think it starts strong and it ends strong, but
the Dimple
in
arc
the middle, there's some funny episodes with like aliens and stuff that it's like, oh, that's weird.
That
Not a
episode was
very big like climax.
The episode where they go on the mountaintop is very weirdly animated.
Yeah, not badly animated, but definitely it's noticeably strange to look at. And in a way, like Mob Psycho in general is kind of a weird looking show as is, but in a very, very good way. But this is like weird even for it.
Yeah, it is very peculiar.
But like that initial arc that you get with the broccoli, and then of course the final arc, I think are all really stellar and are honestly they're up there with like the stuff that happens in season 2. It's just a matter of like, and this isn't necessarily even like a fault of the anime itself, but it's just like a weird way to like structure this final season is to have like this really big peak, and then it kind of like, you're doing some silly stuff, and then it peaks really hard again.
Season 2 does that.
But I feel like season 3 still has like just an overall more consistent like build to it still.
Yeah, I can, because like
the stuff with like
season 2.
What's the guy's name? Mogami. Like when he's like when Mob is like fighting him in his brain or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Like that's like 2 episodes, and then like and part is because like the second season, like the main like payoff at the end is like everything to do with what is it, Claw? Like it's like the fighting the big bad essentially.
Right.
So then coming off of that is always also just gonna feel kind of weird once they finally, because like in season 2 they just knock out feels like the primary antagonist of the story. So it's like,
well, and like season 3 starts with kind of a building on the dynamic between Mob and Dimple.
Yeah.
And then of course the obvious continuation from the end of season 2. But then like, it does kind of meander a bit in the middle.
Yeah, it doesn't flow as well between those 2 big arcs.
Yeah.
Is kind of the thing.
I'm probably in the same place. And plus like that arc with fucking Minori, them trying to like exercise Minori or whatever. That is like the best arc of the show in my opinion. Like as far as like the actual synthesis of things, like writing wise is probably not the best, just because it's not paying off on as much as some of the stuff of season 3. But it is just like peak for me, like as far as like execution and what it is doing.
And once you do get to that final arc, it is a really, really great ending to the series.
Yeah,
like, it does
the end
it
of
does
season
everything
3.
that you would want. Yeah, the end of season 3 basically does everything that you would want to happen at the end of this story, essentially.
Yeah. It does it in a way that's like not necessarily like fan servicey, I guess is the way to put it. Like
no,
it's
but
not like concluding everything like you would write on Wattpad or some shit like, and then they all got happily ever. But it concludes it in a way that is very fitting for what has been building up for 2 seasons.
Yes.
Up till now.
And again, we talk when we say that like it's not like our like we like season 2 more for such and such reasons. It's still number 4 on your list, and if it was on mine, it'd probably be up here as well.
For any context, for whatever it matters, I gave it the same score. Like it's not it's so significantly worse.
No. This is just like minute, like nitpicking almost in terms of like, well, what season do I like more?
My feelings.
Yeah. But at this point, there's no sense in like even talking about this in terms of like, should you watch Mob Psycho season 3? It's a very simple answer. It's have you seen Mob Psycho? If so, then yeah, you should watch the 3rd season, duh. And if you haven't seen Mob Psycho yet, start from season 1 and then work your way up through season 2 and 3.
See, I thought you were going to go like,
fuck is wrong
if you haven't seen Mob Psycho, are you psycho?
Are you out of your goddamn mind?
You got your goddamn mind? But yeah, it is fucking fantastic.
Yeah. So for my number 3 then, we have already talked about Ousama Ranking. So do we want to then move on to your number 3 then?
We can, because my number 3 is the same as your number 2, so it's accomplishing the same thing.
Your number 2 is going to be my number 1, so... Okay, so let's talk about Vinland Saga Season 2. See, this is like, I don't like having sequel seasons on this, but here I feel more justified because Season 1, for anyone who doesn't know, is a very straightforward Viking revenge story. Very action. You got your edgy protagonist, you got your hype moments and aura, you got Askeladd is an awesome villain. Thorfinn is he's like your angsty boy. And then, season 1 ends, and then we get into season 2. And the reason I have season 2 on here is because it is building on what comes from season 1, but it's such a departure in terms of like the kind of story that it is. This is Farmland Saga, if anyone is familiar with the meme. And the reason it's on here for me is, one, because I like this. I already loved season 1. I love this even more, like significantly more even.
See,
and
I did not care for season 1. I mean, I didn't think it was bad. But like watching
it, especially given like the hype around the manga when the anime was coming out, and we're obviously like, both fans of Planetes as well.
I feel like I fell into the similar trapping with Planetes when I initially watched it, because I watched Planetes with the context of it being like a lot of people's favorites. And so I was like, oh, ready for a grounded space story. And then you get like
and then you get moon ninjas.
Yeah. I fell into that same kind of trapping with Vinland Saga for some fucking reason. Cause like there's just been a thing in my head where it's like, oh, I would really like to watch a grounded Viking show. That'd be really cool to see them like oiling up the bows of ships with fish fat and dragging them across the plains.
And then like literally right off the bat, the opening scene of season 1 is like insane, like Dragon Ball Z action between these guys like jumping from ship to ship, doing these like superhuman feats.
Yeah, and then you get to like Thorkel fucking throwing trees like darts. And it's this fucking Viking Goku, and you're like, oh. And
then Thorfinn is like fighting like a ninja with like his twin daggers and stuff. It's very silly.
Yeah.
It's very silly, but
and then I couldn't really appreciate the politics of season 1 all that much because it does all the stuff and it's like positioning itself. Like part of it that stood out to me was like toward the end where they're like scheming with
Askeladd,
Canute. Yeah, Askeladd
Oh
and
yeah,
Canute.
Canute and Askeladd. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're talking about how they're gonna position themselves and what they're gonna do and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then it just ends. Spoilers for season 1 of Vinland Saga.
It just ends very abruptly. Like there's a thing that happens, and it escalates immediately, and then it ends. Hard.
Basically, it's just like, yeah, none of that actually mattered. The like 2 episodes we just spent talking about all that shit is not gonna happen. It just didn't matter.
Which is like a thematic point, is like, the best laid plans of mice and men and all that.
But you don't. I mean, you can get that from season 1, but like as an experience in itself, I'm just like,
as a if the story ended right there, it would just be kind of like,
why?
Okay, that was cool.
Yeah,
but it doesn't. That's the prologue.
That's the prologue, and that's why part of why I love season 2 so much, because like it recontextualizes a lot of what you watched season 1.
Yes, it is so much of a commentary on season. It's like. And it's literally through Thorfinn's character and his arc, where he starts off in season 1. He's this edgy boy. He's trying to get revenge on Askeladd because he killed his father and stuff. And he's like, but he's tagging along with him as well, because that's the only way he can possibly get revenge. And then season 2 is just 2 guys on a farm talking about and reflecting on like the nature of violence and the importance of like peace and stuff. And it's so moving, honestly. It's so good. Like the arc that Thorfinn goes through in this season is like season 1, he's a fairly static character. He just becomes angsty main character kid. And then, but you need that though. You need that sort of like angst and anger and hatred in order to have, in order for the line, I have no enemies to really hit as hard as it does.
I think, what was the episode? Was it episode 8?
Yeah,
9.
like 8 or 9 when he has this, like, it's like a dream sequence basically, and he's like hanging in hell.
That is unironically the best episode of anime I think I've seen this year. Or sorry, this decade.
Yeah, honestly, it is.
There's
I
a
think
very short
that,
list that I could compete with that. Like,
yeah, because like,
hype up,
it's always weird to like judge episodes as like standalone things, and it's usually just like when something is like really, really shocking in terms, not in terms of like, oh, shock factor, gory, violent. No, just in terms of like it hits you so hard, it like kind of like knocks you back a little bit.
Yeah, like
there aren't a lot of
episode 7, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like better than that for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's and I had my initial reservations going into season 2 because I didn't terribly care for season 1. I didn't care for episode 1 of season 2 because they take some stuff that happened that is like, later on in the manga, and they kind of put it at the start. You're not really familiar with Ainir is the name of the character. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Einar? The new character that they introduced that is on the farm. Yeah, that is on the farm with Thorfinn. They put his like backstory up the front, and it's very just kind of like edgy, and I don't really like, it's not a good start or like a good introduction to his character, in my opinion. I think it makes more sense to get that information later on. And the reason it's done like that is so that at the end of the episode, we can then get the reveal of Thorfinn and where he's at.
Yeah.
And what's been going on with him. But then past that, from basically episode 2 onward, it just keeps getting better. And it's such a interesting look at these circumstances and these characters and their beliefs. And it's, in a certain way, it is like kind of what I've come to expect from Yukimura at this point. I think it's like an interview he did with Giga, Planetes and Vinland Saga are very, very different stories. One is a sci-fi, like kind of like slice of life, character drama story.
Right.
And then that's fairly short. And then the other is this, Viking action sprawling like epic. But at the end of the day, they are kind of just ultimately about those those same sort of like, core like universal themes that Yukimura likes of like, love, life, death, things like that. And he's able to execute that in such a strong way that in the hands of someone else, it may come across as like kind of corny to have like, like certain like scenes of like these big, like profound, like humanist, like revelation moments for these characters.
Yeah.
But he's able to handle that so well, and it translates very well into the anime as well. And it doesn't really come across like that at all, at least for me.
I could see somebody coming away like that, but I don't necessarily think it's gonna be a common thing.
No. I mean, this is like one of the most celebrated anime of like the last however many years, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like if you're one of the people that just watched Vinland Saga season 1 for hype aura, and then you start watching this, you might be like, this shit's fucking corny, dude.
Yeah, well, that was kind of like the joke, is like going into like, because like season 2 is not like the kind of like action heavy angsty stuff of season 1.
Yeah,
that's always the joke, is like what the Farmland Saga is like the filter. Basically, that's how you filter out all like the shonen slop, Jujutsu Kaisen, solo leveling hype moments in Aura fans. Which I don't know how much of that actually meaningfully, like how many people like that actually exist. I feel like there would be considerable crossover between someone who's like solo leveling and someone who likes this. But if I did have a criticism of the show, and this is a criticism I had in season 1, is that it still does not quite capture. It's in this weird space where Yukimura's art style is not something that really lends itself all that well to animation, with all the detail and the line work going into it. But the anime is not necessarily going enough in its own direction visually. It's still trying to, look at least somewhat like Yukimura's manga. But because that's such a hard look to pull off, it doesn't really always do. Like there are shots that I just do think look bad. Like, you look at like the way the characters are composited, and like they're not necessarily drawn all that well, and there's like this harsh like depth of field filter being placed on the background, and it's like that doesn't quite look as good. But then there are other parts where like it looks really, really good, and those are usually the parts that matter the most. And of course, again, I think a similar thing I said to season 1 is like the writing and the characterization of the story just is like the core appeal, I would say, rather than just like it, it looking like a, big Mappa, action animation show.
Right. But yeah, that's my number 3. That's your number 2.
Yeah. And my number 2, so go watch Vinland Saga. If you watched season 1 but haven't seen season 2 yet, you got to get on that. And if you haven't seen season 1 or 2 yet, go.
Some peek ahead of you.
Yeah, you got some treats waiting for you. But that brings us to our last anime. Then this is my number 1 of the decade, and your number 2 of the decade, and I have to go take a piss.
My number 2.
So Mumi, while I'm pissing, tell them about PLUTO.
Yeah, my number 2 and his number 1, PLUTO. I mean, everyone should fucking know this. It's the remake of the world's strongest robot arc of Tetsuron Adam, or however the fuck you pronounce it, or Astro Boy. I don't know what he's saying. He's fucking yelling at me from the bathroom. Astro Boy.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Well, I said that while you were yelling. If you would shut up and piss.
I am.
Jesus. So it adapts this specific arc, and I guess the conceit behind it was kind of like capturing the mystique that Naoki Urasawa had for that arc as a child. Well, it was an anniversary project, but like the conceit of like behind wanting to do it was he kind of wanted to recapture like what he enjoyed so much about the arc and like watching the show when he like was a kid, and like kind of filled in for himself. But then like when he went back as an adult, he was like, oh, this is not what I remember, and he kind of wanted to create that thing he almost had like built up in his mind, and so that's why he approached the Tezuka.
What's Osamu Tezuka's son, who's like basically the one who like offered him the privilege to do this essentially. God damn it.
Well, I think his mom didn't his wife and the son's mother like initially like reject it.
I don't know. I just know that like Makoto Tezuka's Osamu Tezuka's son basically like invited what is the name of the author again? Fuck, I'm blanking on it. Jesus Christ. Urasawa. He invited Urasawa out to dinner basically and kind of like proposed him this. And mind you, at the time, Urasawa was like very busy publishing every other manga that he was at the time. I think Monster was still going. Maybe like 20th Century Boys was like in planning or going. A lot of stuff going on. And then he's like, I want you to adapt the most famous arc of the most famous manga ever written. And he's like, are you out of your goddamn mind? Just an understandable reaction to have. I mean, I imagine if he wasn't apprehensive, he's like, of course I can. I'm Naoki Urasawa. I am the GOAT. Really funny. Yeah, so it's and you know, so that manga came out between like 2003 and 2006.
Yeah, it came out alongside the 2003 adaptation of Astro Boy.
Yes, it did. Yeah. And then
both, like anniversary projects.
Flash forward like many years. Like I think it's like when was this anime announced actually? Because at a certain point,
2015,
it was just assumed that this anime, like it was announced, it was in production, and then we heard nothing about it for years, to the point that it was almost assumed that it was like, oh, it's just never coming out. The production fell through, and we just haven't heard like any solid confirmation on it. And then flash forward to 2023, basically like 60 years after the original Astro Boy anime aired, and this just shows up on Netflix to no pomp and circumstance. No one fucking watched this, and I hate that fact. I hate it. Was why didn't this get the same goddamn level of hype as Cyberpunk Edgerunners? It should have.
Originally announced in 2017 at the Annecy International Animated Film Festival.
Yeah, so it was 2017, and then we went like 5 or 6 years with no news on it. And in part, that was because like, you know, COVID-19 pandemic basically ended up like, you know, messing up like with the production of a lot of stuff, to say the least.
Yeah. 7 years, that's a long time.
It came out, and had you read the manga at all?
Nope.
Yeah, it always been on my radar. I think I even own maybe like a volume or two of it and just never got to reading it. But
I've only ever read I've read some of Monster, but I've only read all of 20th Century Boys and 21st Century Boys.
Yeah. But we've both seen Monster. We both think Monster is great. And then we also I've not read 20th Century Boys, but I've been told it's the GOAT, to say the least.
Sure.
I've been told it's very good.
It's fine. It's good. Yeah. It's not. It's just like in the pantheon of his other stuff. I'm like, it could have been better.
So I had a lot of hype going into this. I had fairly high expectations because it is like, this is the first Urasawa adaptation since Monster, I think. Since like the mid 2000s, basically.
I think he's only had this, Monster, Judo Girl, Yawara, and Keaton.
Yeah, and Keaton and Yawara were both before Monster, so
I think I need to fact check myself on this. Maybe there's like a fifth OVA somewhere I'm not thinking of.
Yeah, so we had pretty high expectations going into this. It comes out on Netflix, and we get to watching it. We start that first episode. We're watching it like this is really good. And then halfway through the first episode, it does like a hard cut to being about an old man and his robot friend. And we're like, what's going on? What the fuck is this? And they are hour-long episodes, 8-hour-long episodes, basically, which they are able to do because it's Netflix. And, you know, that starts maybe halfway through, 30 minutes in. And then by the time we actually finished the episode, we were like, this is the greatest anime ever made.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's so good. And it's such an insane, because after we watched the anime, we then went back and went through the original arc as it is in the manga and the like 1963 anime. Didn't you guys also then watch that how it was handled in like the 1980s anime as well?
Yeah, we didn't watch all of it or skim through all of it.
No, but we did go through like the other versions of this story, and
the 83 version's a bit more complicated. Or no, I'm thinking of the 2003 version, because it's tied into like spoilers for the overall show. Whereas like the original, it's not. It's just like a standalone arc.
Yeah. And what's interesting about it is that there's no mystery in that original arc. No. Whereas this is a mystery story. So if you read that original arc, which, you know, it's a matter of, a lot of people have just been familiar with the story as is when the manga was first coming out. But the way it's able to take specific elements from that original story and recontextualize them and retool them in all these different ways just adds like another layer to appreciate it, because it's already pretty damn good visually. It's a really great story. I love the characters and everything that happens in it. And then you see what Urasawa, something about Vinland Saga, was like pulling from in order to make this story. And it's just like, it's insane, honestly.
It's kind of incredible, honest. Yeah.
And it's not to say like, oh, the original story is bad or anything, but he's able to, it's like a remix, essentially. He takes this really great arc and then remixes it into something else. And, you know, thinking about it in the context of that is just even more astounding, honestly, because I mean, it's funny to think about, because like, you know, the manga would have been coming out in like 2003. You have the American invasion of Iraq, and you have all this like geopolitics stuff surrounding what is it, like the country, a fake version of the United States and a fake version of Iran is like the center of like the geopolitical conflict at the center of this story, ultimately. And thinking about that in the context of that, and then coming back to it in the context of like, you know, 2023, late 2023, because this would have been like, you know, around the time that like, you know, the war in Gaza started. You, of course, then had the war in Russia going on as well. All of this stuff hitting at once. And it just exists in such an interesting place in history as well, that you then take like the themes and ideas that the story is dealing with, and it's just like, God damn, he really is just like on another level. How does he do it? How is he? And he has like a YouTube channel. Urasawa seems like the fucking coolest guy ever.
Maybe
You've seen like the video of him playing the song from 20th Century Boys, like on the acoustic guitar at like some convention.
Maybe I think I have. I've seen a couple of different videos, I feel like, of him doing that. I don't know if it's the same one you're talking about.
He's like, God damn it. He's the coolest guy ever, and writes peak fiction. It's awesome.
Did he animate the music video for Boy, or did he just lend some like key animation to it or something?
That's a good question. Let me see. Let me pull up his My Anime list. That'll tell me immediately.
Whip up your My Anime list, Naoki Urasawa.
Yeah, he has director credit on Boy.
Director credit, not animator credit.
Yeah. Okay, and the member count is going up on My Anime list. It's now at like over 200,000, thankfully. Yeah, it's just one of those stories where it's like I feel like it's so good and it's so accessible. It's on Netflix that I honestly just kind of feel a little bit sad that it did not take over the world, honestly, when it really should have, because it is such a good. It's a story that like I think anyone could watch. They don't even need to be an anime fan, really. This is like just or like familiar with Astro Boy or anything. So it's just like this should have been like all over the place, and it just wasn't.
I feel like it would like be interesting to show people that probably have like cultural idea of Astro Boy, but then just show them like Pluto, and then just be like, oh yeah, that boy there is Astro Boy, and they're like, what?
And
that's Astro Boy. Oh, my old hick man voice would be so good right now.
Mumi can only do that when his like throat is being like destroyed. It's funny to think about it too in the context that this is like, you know, Osamu Tezuka had like the star system or whatever, where like he would reuse character designs across different manga, almost as if there were like actors like with those appearances that are just playing these different characters. And you kind of get a sense of that as well in this with Urasawa's designs. Like there's a character in Pluto that is just a very obvious dead ringer for Johan from Monster. And I wonder if that was like an idea that he was like working with. It's also just really funny to compare the original character designs in the manga. Like the main character of Pluto is fucking German. And you look how you see how he looks in the you see how he looks at the original manga, and then you compare it to this, and it's really funny. But then other characters have just like they just look the same. They just use like the same basic design.
You get interesting like feedback loops where Tenma was like the inspiration for Gendo, and then Gendo was then the inspiration for Urasawa's rendition of Tenma.
Oh, so obvious. He does like it is literally like you look at him and you go, oh, that's Gendo. I mean, he's not as big of an asshole as Gendo by any stretch, but
it's just Gendo with a zoomer haircut.
Yeah. Seriously, like I would be happy if there was like another TV anime that came out in the 2020s that ended up topping this for me. I'd be very surprised, but very, very happy if something happened like that, because this is like, this is like on my favorites, like, like in like my top 25, essentially. It's so good.
Well, you can imagine my surprise and my shock when Dead Demons Dead Destruction was that show for me.
Yeah.
That's my number one. Anyone that did not put together through context clues of us saying like, oh yeah, it's later on your list, and then not mentioning it yet.
There's only one other thing it could have that could be left on Mumi's list if Pluto is number 2.
Pluto's 2, and this is number 1. Which you talked quite a bit about. I would only talk about like.
So why does it hit so hard for you? What puts it at number 1?
I feel like it's the journey of the character, like being with Oran and Karode for as long as you are, because like Asano is really strong with like character writing and stuff. Obviously, Urasawa's mystery and like general like narrative is stronger, I think, than Dead Demons, like as far as like being tight. But I feel like Dead Demons was like something that paid off consistently week to week. The execution's on par with Pluto.
Visually, yeah,
as far as like the production and everything.
And the wonderful character designs.
They're excuse me.
Mumi is on his deathbed talking about Dededede. How fitting that dead is in the title twice.
This is my last act as anime podcaster.
This is the anime podcast equivalent of the end of like Ashitano Joe.
Let me tell you about my favorite anime from the 2020s before I die, my son. Dead Demons Dead Destruction.
I mean, just be honest with us, Mumi. The reason it's above Pluto is the opening.
You mean the ending?
The ending, yeah.
Yeah, the one that's my intro. I was like,
yes.
Wait a minute, no, you're.
I mean, both are really good. Let's be real.
Yeah, they're both. Well, fucking, they're sung by the VA, so
Yes. Again. If there's anything, is Dededede and Pluto should just be more popular than they are. There's no reason. There's literally zero reason. There's no conceivable reason that these two shows are not more popular.
I feel like the same goes for. I feel like everything in my top 4. I understand why Tatami Time Machine Blues is not so popular, so I can't say top 5.
Sure.
The top 4, like Mob, Vinland Saga, Pluto, Dededede, like they're so fucking good. It's like, why not?
Mhm.
Why not?
I mean,
Why not?
Vinland season 2 and Mob Psycho, like those are both like really, really popular, like way above Pluto and Dededede. Which
Yeah,
again,
they're not comparable.
Because like your Urasawa and Asano are like 2 of the most popular like mangaka outside of Japan. Ponpon is like the sad boy national anthem basically, and then Monster has given like the profile picture to every fucking edgy asshole online ever. Like why didn't those fucking people turn out? What the fuck?
Good, cute girls in high school.
Yeah, they all got girlfriends. Fucking assholes. Meanwhile, we're out here single, still grinding.
On that grind set. I feel like
on that grind set.
They both are really good thrillers too. They
are.
Like each week, like seeing the next development with the aliens, where like the fucking cliffhanger with all the aliens falling off the ship, you're like, holy shit.
All the different like political, like, because again, to go back to Pluto a little bit, like the robot Pluto in the original manga, he's just there. It's like the first thing you see in the original arc. But like
he's there in his home country. You know who made him. Like literally everything that's a mystery in Pluto is just in the first page.
Like the first couple pages. It's really funny. But like, yeah, here it's like he's like, constantly like shrouded in like this like storm. You don't know what his motives are, who created him, or what's going on. And it's like stuff you need to like piece together over the course of the story. And with Dededede, I mean, Dededede doesn't necessarily have like that same central mystery aspect to it as much as it is like just general uncertainty about what could happen next and where the story could possibly go, because the world could literally end at a moment's notice in Dededede.
Yeah.
Whereas like Pluto, it's like this almost like ticking clock essentially. Something is going to happen at the end of the story, and it's just a matter of like what is gonna hit, and are they gonna be able to figure out the mystery in time and stop it. Whereas, I mean, kind of the point of Dededede is like the characters that we're following Dededede are fundamentally powerless to like stop this.
Yeah.
They are ultimately just onlookers and victims at the end of the day.
It's interesting because I've started reading Dededede like right after Pun Pun, like because it was next serialization, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say I dropped it, but like I didn't want. It was not something I wanted to read week to week or month, whatever it was. I think it was a monthly. It might have been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I didn't want to watch. I didn't want to read it serialized because it'd take too long. I already did that with Pun Pun, but I caught like the tail end of it, so I only had to wait for like 2 volumes, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wasn't feeling it. But like,
are you
watching
happy
it
that you
to
waited
week,
to watching it as an anime instead?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm not. Well, I mean, this isn't an indictment on the manga, really. I'm just not a manga.
It's not a manga guy as much.
I mean, there are like Pun Pun. I don't know if I would ever want an anime of.
I don't know if you could get away with that. It's say that it's a manga even.
I mean, even if you could get away with it, I don't even know if I want it. Like same with like JoJo Part 7. I don't like the anime is pretty much announced, just not announced.
It's not announced. It's coming. You can hear like the horse's feet like.
Well, yeah, they've at this point, when we're recording this, they've already announced that they're doing a new anime thing. They're gonna have an anime announcement, at the same event.
I wonder what the fuck it could be.
But yeah.
So
I have like no interest really in it. Like I'm gonna watch it because like I do love Part 7. Like it is one of my favorite manga. And I mean, there's a chance it'll be really good. But
what was your bet again in terms of what would get announced first? JoJo Part 7 or Lupin Part 7?
JoJo.
I mean, I'm correct. So
yeah, I mean, it was obvious it was gonna happen really quick. Lupin's been like on and off for like it just airs like 2 parts like back to back and then just like disappears off the face of the planet for a decade plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, we watch it. This was like a weird experience for me watching it week to week from just like a quality perspective. Because very early on, like I would say by episode like 7, I was like, this could be really high up on my favorites. And I don't know how to reconcile that yet. And that feeling didn't change up through the last episode. And I was like, holy shit.
The ending to Dededede is certainly something that is like uncertain in terms of how to feel about it, because it is like unlike any other anime ending.
Yeah, like in some ways it almost feels like a bad ending in the sense where it's like, why would you write it this way? But then it's not. You know what I mean?
But
like
it's again, yeah, it's such a weird ending to parse. But you compare that to like Pluto. Pluto came out all at once, which probably played a plan in it's not being as popular, given that it's a mystery story. And we were watching like basically one episode a day instead of one episode a week. So we didn't have that necessarily like waited with bated breath.
We watched it quicker than that.
No. We watched like 4 episodes one night and then 4 episodes the next night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We
watched it real quick.
Well, so we watched it even faster than that. And, it comes back to like, the way in which you watch something can very much affect your enjoyment of it.
I think they both worked for what we watched. I mean,
this is true. Yeah.
I feel like I could watch Dededede like marathoning it, not necessarily like all at once, but good chunks of it at a time, and I think it would still hold up.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
But I think I think it was the optimal experience watching it week to week. Whereas like Pluto, I feel like also benefited from watching in chunks like that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's our top. I don't know how many this actually comes out to, given like the overlap, but that's
both of our top 10s. Yeah. Even if there's we didn't talk about.
There are between 10 and 20 anime on this list. There cannot be more and there cannot be less. So, if you have not seen any of these and you wanted us to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen or I don't know what's. I
mean, to be fair, I was really close to talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. Jujutsu Kaisen is my number 11 of the decade.
Fucking casual.